Am I the asshole for just saying okay and walking away disgusted when my fiancé blamed me for ruining his life and broke up in a rant? Edit. Thank you for all your opinions. It was nice to get this off my chest, lol. Just to clarify though, I don't feel like a victim. I feel like something happened, and my relationship just turned bad. He behaved like an asshole, but that is the extent of it. Very clearly, something is going on. But he doesn't want me to be part of whatever it is, and I have to respect that. Now I just have to detangle myself legally from him, and after that, I'll just be left alone with my ugly green wall color. I think I might also adopt a cat as my ex was really allergic. So, IDK man. I, 28, have been with my fiancé, Alex, 34, since 2020. We met at a friend's party, hit it off and have been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then he has been working at the uni. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay, so the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly, just weird. For the past few months he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples, he told me we were going to paint our walls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, "For fuck's sake, forget it," and never brought it up again. Even when I asked. Another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, "Forget it, it's not a big deal." This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on, whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work. He would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about, the apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then, on Monday, I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming, and after the last few months I had made peace with it. When I came home he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, "I want to break up." Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me, first because I didn't pursue my academic career further, even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money. Since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like, "It's my money, so I have the final say." That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our fucking crockpot. Then he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters. Only, he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving, and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and fuck him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, "I'm done." I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt, but after that rant I was just disgusted. I looked at him, probably with a disgusted expression, and said, "Okay." He lost it. He said this is exactly what he meant. That it was horrible. We had been together for 4 years and all I had to say was okay to our breakup. I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, "Typical, of course you're holding the apartment over me," and started ranting again, so I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-50 financial split. I make good money and am happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was our money because we were building a life together. Of course, I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared. As long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me, I was fine with it. More than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split to being a seething asshole complaining about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him at this point. I don't know. Should I have reacted differently? I tried to fulfill my girlfriend's fantasy by buying a male sex doll, but it backfired. Now she enjoys it more than I do. My GF shared a role-play fantasy with me during the early stages of our relationship. By her own admission, she never expected our relationship to grow into something serious, so the purpose of her sharing this specific fantasy on one of our dates didn't feel like anything she wanted the two of us to actually do. It was a trivial topic between two people who didn't see a long-term future with each other and therefore felt comfortable discussing our absurd fantasies. This is how my GF explained her fantasy to me. She catches her supposedly straight BF fucking a male sex doll, which turns her on and prompts her to encourage him to continue fucking the doll while she watches and masturbates. No idea how I reacted at the time, but I always remembered my GF struggling to balance her embarrassment with her enthusiasm, which was wholesome as fuck and made me like her even more. I liked her so much that I wanted to keep seeing her, and thankfully the feeling was mutual. We eventually became GF and BF and life continued. My GF never referenced the gay sex doll fantasy again, even when we experimented with a variety of other role-play fantasies in the bedroom. I never forgot, and I figured it would be kind of cool to celebrate our 1-year anniversary by exploring the fantasy my GF shared with me when I was nothing more to her than a guy she just wanted to have fun with in her free time. I decided to keep it as a surprise and let my GF believe that our anniversary dinner was as special as things were going to get that night. But little did she know that I secretly made all the necessary arrangements to bring her homoerotic fantasy to life. The plan was simple. Go out for dinner. Come home. Cuddle on the couch. However, mid-cuddle, I would go to the bathroom, but that would be an act because I would not be going to the bathroom at all. I would instead beeline for the bedroom where I would get undressed and proceed to get things going with my male sex doll, which I ordered online weeks ago and managed to keep hidden until that moment. The idea being that my GF would begin to wonder where the fuck I was and then eventually find me balls deep inside the rubber butt of a lifelike sex toy. I was hoping that by the time my GF opened the bedroom door, I would have managed to get it up, get it in, and somehow make it look like I'm not just fucking an inanimate object but the object of my deepest desire. Needless to say, I had to be hard to fuck the doll, which proved to be hard to do because, it was a fucking doll. With a dick. Not exactly my type. I never even heard my GF approach my bedroom because I was too focused on forcing my penis to cooperate. As soon as the bedroom door swung open, my GF and I saw each other and both of us fucking froze. My GF covered her mouth with her hand and asked if I was gonna explain what the fuck was happening. I jokingly said she always wanted to be with a guy who was into fucking twink sex dolls up the ass. My GF laughed and said she had no idea what I was talking about, but she was keen to know more. I reminded her of the moment at the beginning of our relationship when she revealed that she fantasized about a role-play situation where she catches her BF fucking a male sex doll and then she ends up enjoying the show. My GF gradually stopped laughing and said she most definitely would have remembered something as specific as that, and yet, she struggled to remember anything like that ever being discussed between the two of us or anyone else. I said I remembered though. Hence the fuckable mannequin I was failing to fuck. My GF stopped saying she didn't remember what I was talking about and low-key switched to disagreeing with me that she ever shared a fantasy like that with anyone because she refused to believe it was something she would think of, let alone enjoy. I made it clear to her that I would never have purchased a male sex doll, much less go as far as to fuck the thing, if it wasn't for the fact that I remembered her talking about how hot that was for her. My GF asked if one of us was gaslighting the other or if maybe one of us, aka me, was feeling somewhat ashamed about what was going on in the room before she walked in. I said I was feeling frustrated that she was refusing to even entertain the idea that she might have had this fantasy and communicated it with me. My GF said maybe I was confusing her with an ex-GF who enjoyed watching straight guys doing gay stuff. I decided to shut up and get dressed because I didn't understand what was going on anymore. My GF inspected the sex doll while continuing to question me about this so-called fantasy of hers that she was convinced was in fact my fantasy. She wondered if it was just her that thought the sex doll kind of looked like my best friend. I kissed her and said happy anniversary before I reiterated that this was all for her. My GF asked if that meant she could use the sex doll too. I said since both my dick and my chick, I never actually said chick, are not into me using the doll, then I would have no use for it, so consider it an anniversary gift. My GF thanked me and said she appreciated how vulnerable I was willing to be in front of her, regardless of whose fantasy it was. It's been a month since the night of our anniversary and one thing has become apparent to me. My GF loves the sex doll. In fact, she's been fucking it more than she fucks me, but she denies it, which seems to be something she does a lot when it comes to the sex doll. I wish I could go back in time and tell past me to avoid buying a sex doll and save the money for a PS5 or some shit. TLDR bought a male sex doll, which I planned to have sex with in front of my GF, who once said she had a fantasy of watching her BF fuck a male sex doll. Realized I fucked up when A, I struggled to get hard, B, my GF denied ever having such a fantasy, thus making me look low-key gay, and C, my GF now enjoys fucking the sex doll more than she fucks me, which she denies too. Comments Firelight 3. Anyone going to talk about how she said she thought it looked like his best friend and now she wants to fuck it all the time? LOL OOP. It didn't go over my head. I just didn't take the bait. I knew the best friend comment was an attempt to make me feel even more awkward about trying to fuck a doll with a dick. That doll looks nothing like my best friend. If it did, then my best friend should audition for a role in Team America. Catter0223 I just want to know how far he went. Is it one of those novelty blow-up dolls they's more pool float than doll? Or did bro splurge on a $3,000 real doll? OOP I went for the closest thing to real as possible because I foolishly thought the blow-up version might end up being too comical and potentially take my GF out of the moment. But that happened anyway. Paid $2.199 for a model named Max, but the true cost appears to be my relationship. What is this a cantad dude? What are you even doing being in a relationship with someone like this? OOP This might come as a surprise based on my post, but excluding recent events, my GF made me happy. I detected no relationship ending red flags until now. I'm not sure what to call what's been happening to us since the sex doll situation, but she's beginning to show me a side to her that I didn't even know existed. My friend planted a seed in my head when I shared this story with him. He believes my GF wants to break up with me for whatever reason and the sex doll unexpectedly became a possible exit strategy. Hence the gaslighting and the sex doll fucking. Rightmar 1423. She denies telling you about fantasy. Makes you feel awkward when you tried to do something special on your anniversary. Tells you the doll looks like your best friend and on top of it all, she fucks it more than she does you. Something is off about here. And I think you need to have serious talk with your girlfriend before the seed your friends has planted into your head grows into doubts and resentfulness and in the end destroying this relationship from the inside. Update. October 16, 2024. I made the mistake of purchasing a male sex doll for the purpose of fulfilling the homoerotic fantasy my GF pitched to me at the beginning of our relationship, which was that she fantasized about watching a guy fuck a male sex doll. I thought I was prepared to bring the fantasy to life, but I realized I fucked up when my GF walked in on me struggling to fuck the sex doll because I was unable to get hard and then she informed me that she never had that fantasy, which convinced her that I must have misunderstood her or imagined the whole fucking thing. What happened for weeks afterwards was my GF sticking to the narrative that she never shared that fantasy with me and then making the decision to fuck the sex doll since I no longer had any use for it. When I recently shared my story on Reddit, mods removed my original post. The comments were kind of split between my GF gaslighting me and me misremembering what she said. My GF and I basically agreed to disagree about the origin story of the fantasy and moved on. In an attempt to finally embrace the awkwardness of the situation, I decided to follow the advice of a few Redditors and proposed a threesome featuring me, my GF, and the sex doll she was apparently fucking. My GF laughed and said I was investing too much time thinking about the sex doll before telling me that she's actually never been intimate with the sex doll. She unexpectedly confessed that she was playfully planting seeds in my head to make me believe that she was fucking the sex doll because she didn't know what the fuck to make of the fantasy. I believed she came up with it. So instead of prolonging a fantasy that none of us were enjoying, she improvised and incorporated ingredients that she thought would spice things up, hence her month-long mindfuckery to make me feel like I'm competing in the bedroom against a humanoid sex toy. My GF and I had a long conversation about transparency. She said she appreciated that I was willing to be vulnerable for the purpose of pleasing her, but to avoid uncomfortable situations or misunderstandings, she encouraged me to rather inform her about things that involve fantasies and kinks, especially if I'm gonna end up spending money on expensive sex dolls. I apologized and also encouraged her to follow her own advice and keep me in the loop if she was gonna play mind games. As soon as my GF and I cleared the air, we were left wondering if a threesome with the sex doll was still something we wanted to do. I was leaning towards leaving the sex doll out of the bedroom and out of our lives forever, but my GF seemed keen to want to see me fucking the doll since that was apparently her fantasy according to me. So as a couple, we decided to fuck the sex doll together. And you know what? It fucking sucked. My GF, who had the sex doll in her possession, didn't tell me that her dog somehow managed to find the sex doll and eat parts of it. When I saw the doll in front of me, it had chunks of hair missing on its head, its top lip was ripped off, and both nipples were gone. It was the stuff of nightmares. My GF was very apologetic and quick to point out that everything below the waist was still in one piece, So it was still fuckable, but all I saw was the thousands that I regrettably spent on a realistic sex doll that now looked like Jim Carrey as Fire Marshal Bill. Anyway, so I butt-fucked Bill, but I was only able to get it up because my GF offered to give me a hand. It was the most shameful orgasm I've ever had. My GF had a hard time making eye contact with me afterwards without laughing. Worst sex I've ever had mixed with the worst money-making decision I've ever made. TLDR, coming back from my original post, which has been removed, my GF and I made peace and decided to fuck the sex doll together. The sex was absolutely terrible and the sex doll looked fucked up because my GF accidentally allowed her dog to destroy it. So, not only was the sex the absolute worst, but I literally fucked away thousands out of my bank account because I'm unable to return the sex doll now that it's been deformed. Comments Rush 2049. If this story is true, and it's odd enough that I think it actually could be, you need to seriously reconsider your relationship. This is way too much energy into mind games over something that was supposed to be a thoughtful gift for her. Then she didn't take care of the asset either, and instead of returning it, she destroyed it. Fucking weak-ass behavior in a partner, and this situation almost reads like she's getting a kick out of seeing you be embarrassed. You're not having sex for months. This story makes me think your girlfriend sucks. OP, I hate comparing my GF to my exes, but I can guarantee that most of my exes, if not all of them, would have buried the sex doll fantasy that night if this was some kind of misinterpretation from my side and not something they were into. None of them would have exploited my fuck up and low-key extended what was an obvious failed attempt on my end at being thoughtfully kinky. On the surface, there seems to be peace between me and my GF, but I have a feeling that the sex doll might have indirectly exposed the cracks in my relationship. Anyway, this is what I'm saying now. Tomorrow I might just feel like I was overthinking everything and regret this comment. JWatts 1973. The funniest part of the story is how you think a non-deformed sex doll is returnable. Am I the asshole for refusing to split my college fund with my dad's affair child after he pressured my family to give him a share? Original post. My father dropped a big bomb on our family last year when he revealed that he had a secret son from his affair years ago. After my mom found out and gave him the ultimatum, he cut things off with the mistress and she moved away until last year when she introduced him to their son Hank. I really don't give a damn about his latent father instinct since he didn't give his other family any consideration when he broke the news. Thank God my mom divorced him and now neither my brother Connor, M18, sister Sophia, F15, or I want anything to do with him anymore. Here's the thing though. We have a shared college fund that my mom's parents set up for us when we were little. My parents contribute almost half of the money and my maternal grandparents contribute the other half. The account remains under my mom after the divorce. As far as I know, he stopped contributing to that account after the divorce. Last month, I found out that my dad's been harassing my mom because he wanted to add Hank as a beneficiary to the college fund for my siblings. He's saying that Hank is his son and therefore entitled to the college fund that he set up for me, Connor, and Sophia. My mom told him off and now he has been going around harassing her online and to their mutual acquaintances and friends, claiming that she is heartless and cruel for taking her anger out on an innocent child. And then, he also had the genius idea to reach out to me to put pressure on my mom. He said I should consider opening up my heart to Hank, who grew up without a father and wasn't set up in life like my siblings and me. I left him on read since, honestly, the things I wanted to say to that callous evil monster may be too much. Yesterday he changed tactics and now said he wanted to withdraw all his part of the money from the account, divided them to make sure Hank has his share and deposited the rest back into the account. With the caveat that since Connor and I didn't need to use the college fund for tuition since we both had full ride scholarships, the money would be divided into 2 parts. For Hank and Sophia, instead of into 4 parts for his 4 children. And now he, some of my dad's side of the family, and even the mistress are pressuring my mom to agree to that. And I'm praying that she won't. It physically makes me angry that we're being asked to split our money with my dad's affair child. Even if yes, I don't need to use the money to pay for school, I will need it in the future. Same with Connor. And I know for a fact he would never use the same reasoning to exclude Connor and I from the fund just to have the money solely for Sophia in the same situation. It's all for Hank. I understand that Hank is innocent and not responsible for his parents' actions, but I don't think of him as my brother. Hell, I don't even think of my father as my father anymore, to be honest. As far as I'm concerned, my family consists of me, my siblings, and my mom. That's it. So, AITA? Edit. I'm 23, Hank is 14. OOP's comments. What type of fund? Where I live, if the funds are unused due to scholarship, we can withdraw it and won't be penalized. And I'm considering getting a master's degree, so even if I didn't have to pay for my undergraduate, I probably will need it for grad school. The fund is a state-sponsored savings plan. Sorry, I can't give the actual name since it's very specific to where we live. Commenter, NTA et al. Where does your father get the idea that he set up this fund when it was your grandparents on your mom's side? Do his family members know the whole story? OP, yeah, that man's delusion is out of this world. His audacity is truly unmatched. My paternal grandparents know and support us. I know my grandma has been trying to get him to back off, but he unfortunately doesn't listen to her. It's mainly my dad's brothers who are joining him to harass my mom. I don't know if they know the full story or not. Since grandma and grandpa know, I feel like they do too. Update. Thank you so much everyone for the support and advice, I really appreciate it. I talked to my mom this morning about getting the lawyer involved and also about a potential restraining order. She has been talking to the lawyer about dad's demands and it looks like he really doesn't have any rights to it. I think some of you are correct that he is doing all this because he knows he won't win in court. As for a restraining order, mom is hesitant to do it right now since dad has visitation rights with Sophia and she doesn't want to make it too complicated for my sister, but she promised me that if things get worse she will get one. My brother Connor and I also talked and we will be taking turns coming home for the weekend so mom and Sophia won't be alone just in case anything happens. Some clarifications. We haven't involved mom's parents since their healths aren't the best right now. Grandpa was really shocked when he heard about the cheating plus secret son of dad that he had a heart attack. Thank God he mostly recovers now. However, none of us want to put stress on him. According to dad, he never knew about Hank's existence until last year when his mistress came back. Nobody in our family knew really until dad brought Hank to a family event to break the news to us. He blindsided and humiliated my mom and it was the final straw for her. They divorced after that. I honestly don't hate Hank. It's just that right now I can't imagine spending time with him. He's a minor still, so everything will have to involve either our father or his mother. And that is a no for me right now. Perhaps in the future, things will be different. Who knows? Hopefully things get resolved soon. Thank you everyone again for the amazing advice and words of support. I discovered my wife's infidelity after my cancer diagnosis, rewrote my will for my children, and decided to hide my illness from her. On November 5th, I got the news I had been most afraid of: aggressive stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which was confirmed by every test. This will essentially be my last holiday season. I have a strange feeling of acceptance, oddly enough. My loved ones will be taken care of, and I have had a happy life. I hadn't told my wife Emily about the test since I'm a naturally private person. Until I received conclusive answers, I didn't want to worry her. I came home early so I could have the talk I needed. I didn't want to deal with this over the phone or over text message. My life changed in a lot of ways that day, as you might have expected given that I'm sharing this now. As I arrived at the driveway, I noticed that one of my business partner's gaudy, expensive vehicle was parked there, complete with his personalized license plate. This was very odd. When I used my phone to access our home security system, I discovered that it was in private mode and not recording. I made the decision to ignore it and drove away to our rural property in order to get my mind straight. Our security system is mostly for protection, and I hardly check it unless there's a specific cause. But I also find it relaxing to watch storms approach and to monitor the wildlife on the outside cams. I have a second video recorder set up for my personal amusement in order to store the material locally, which is inaccessible from my phone. I checked the second server and opened my laptop when I got to the country house to confirm what my gut was already telling me. As expected, Emily and James, my coworker, were in the living room, dancing, drinking wine, and then going upstairs to the bedroom. Since the microphone recorded their actions after they left the camera's field of view, it appears that they left the doors open. I wanted to know the truth because I only have a short time left, but I also didn't want the drama of a fight and divorce. I lost all the love and commitment I had for her that day, so feel free to call me a coward. I know it's not my fault, but I felt every feeling you could imagine. I've been a loyal, caring, and watchful wife. I'm now concentrating on who I am and what I value most. I spoke with my lawyer, and we went over my prenuptial agreement and will. After I gave him the rundown, we got to work figuring out how long and how much of this affair had been going on. We came to the disturbing conclusion that either I never really knew the woman I had been with for more than 20 years, or something had changed drastically in her. I'm not telling Emily or my kids anything right now. I have children from a prior relationship, but we never had children together. In order to give my kids and grandkids one final holiday memory with me, I'm going to put on a brave front and get through the holidays. In addition to trying to be a loving husband, I'll be the devoted father and grandfather. For those who are curious, Emily's affair partner, James, is a widower who hasn't been married again. I don't combine friendship and business, thus he is a business partner but not a personal friend. Jessica, the mother of my twins, made the decision to marry me, and at the time, I agreed that it was the appropriate one. When the children were 7 years old, Jessica, the mother of my children, wed a lovely man named Michael. Michael and Jessica never had kids together. I've been actively involved with the kids ever since I got my act together when they were 3 years old. At that point, I began to develop into the father I had always desired. Michael, Jessica, and I are all in our late 50s. James is in his early 50s, while Emily is about 55. Both Emily and I are in our first marriage. We were married when we were in our early 30s. Update. When the twins were born, Jessica, my ex, and I were still pretty young. Even though they came as a complete surprise, we made the most of it. I'm grateful for the life I've lived and the people I've loved as I approach my last days. They cherish these final times and keep my family near. All of the grandchildren are teenagers or older, and the twins are now in their 30s. Christmas is celebrated for 10 days every year. Christmas Eve to January 2nd is when we spend time at the farm. After everyone has arrived, we all gather to cut down a tree, then we cook, decorate, play games, and celebrate as a family. Since I purchased the property, Laura and her husband John have continued this custom. I'm still determined to keep my diagnosis a secret until after the year ends. Laura wouldn't be able to hide it if I told her, and I don't want to put John in a situation where he has to tell his wife a lie. I want the week to be enjoyable for the children and grandchildren. In a few weeks, we'll have plenty of time to prepare and grieve. In the long run, Emily's attendance this week will only be a small detail. To be honest, I don't give a damn about her nearly as much as I do about the other members of the family. It's an unusual financial scenario. After we were both financially and professionally established, Emily and I met and were married. She had 2 inheritances in a trust, a solid pension, and a good job. At her urging, we decided early on not to tell each other our full net worth. Additionally, at her request, we have a prenuptial agreement that states that any assets or trusts that existed before to the marriage, as well as any income derived from them, are not regarded as marital property. In addition to covering travel, food and petrol, I also supplied both properties, housing, and utilities. She basically had my full backing, and she spent all of her money and resources on herself. She purchased cosmetic surgery, clothing, a car, and personal trips. She has proven to be pretty disagreeable on the inside, despite her stunning exterior. I announced my retirement from the organization where I worked a few days after receiving my diagnosis. Now that I knew, I saw that Emily was a little uneasy. Since I'd be around more frequently, I can guess why. My last day of work is tomorrow, after which I'll be concentrating on spending time with my family. I don't know if Emily and James have had any more activities, but I suppose they have since I provided my lawyer access to the camera server information and allowed him to use it from his office. I don't give a damn now. James is a huge letdown, and I'm aware of my identity and value. I am not as ostentatious as James. In the winter, I prefer wearing jeans, t-shirts, and coveralls, and I drive a 12-year-old pickup truck. I am positive that James is not quite as wealthy as Emily believes him to be. How can I tell? I receive quarterly financial reports because the trust has invested in his company. My accountants and I are the only ones who know how much I have. However, let's assume that over the past 28 years, the trust has been increasing. I lead a simple life and my great-great-grandchildren have enough money to enjoy the farm and receive an education. Emily's reckoning will come when she recognizes what she's lost. I simply won't live to witness it. December was a very busy month. These past 2 weekends, we went on our customary social rounds. James attended one of the gatherings. It was difficult not to watch him and Emily. They probably didn't notice. I found it easier to maintain my composure because I'm so busy finishing things at work. Emily hasn't said anything that would make me think she's aware that I'm aware. I still share a bed with her, something I'm not proud of. Recently, I've been self-centered with her. She seems to have been using me for the majority of this year, yet I still feel like I'm taking advantage of her. Many of you have portrayed myself as honorable, but I'm not. I detest this little bit of dishonesty. Emily won't get everything, so don't stress about it. The trust is well cared for. Thanks to your feedback, I've taken precautions in case I pass away suddenly or if my health deteriorates sooner than predicted. When necessary, I have also arranged for in-home care. I will not be cared for by Emily. The lawyer will let Laura, John, and the children know if I become incompetent, and Emily will not be allowed to see me. Important papers, jewelry, and other necessities have all been relocated to a safe place. I've finally started writing letters to Emily and every member of the family. These have proven more difficult than I thought. Update. The mission has been completed. I've made it to 2024 and we had a fantastic holiday week free of trouble. I apologize in advance, but I find that laughing about my illness helps me deal with it. Recently, I've seen that I'm acting a little selfishly. I just have a few updates because everyone left yesterday afternoon. My week with my family is something I should treasure, therefore I won't discuss it. This week's observations regarding Emily. I genuinely believe that this is the first time she has betrayed me. She looked to suffer from spending the entire week with all of us. It's funny how someone's behavior makes more sense when you know something about them. The fact that she kept her phone a secret and frequently left our family get-togethers to get some air. The nicest part was when one of the grandchildren requested to accompany mom when she had to run into town. She performed nearly ridiculous mental acrobatics to resist taking the grandchild. I must admit that I asked, why not? In order to play along. Thus the affair is still going on. Now that I'm retired, she has been inquiring about my daily or weekly plans. After telling her, I inquire about her plans. To tease her, I'll propose that we have lunch later this week because I'll be in the same vicinity. A cheater's worst adversary is uncertainty. I had a meeting with my lawyer this morning. I requested him to draft documents after making some decisions. I signed a new permanent will in place of my temporary one so it shouldn't need to be changed again. I had him draft divorce paperwork in anticipation of it all blowing out. She only receives 15% of our joint assets, such as furniture and housewares, according to the prenuptial agreement and the evidence of the affair. I maintain whatever I bought with my own money, including my retirement accounts and liquid assets. She must pay alimony if I insist on it. I have a folder including all of our evidence of the affair, which I have signed and am keeping in case I need it. By selling my debt to the trust, I gave the trustees permission to exchange it for stock in James's business. In relation to the trust, I have made a decision on its management. I'm going to drop one trustee. The 4 grandchildren will make up the remaining trusteeship, with the twins receiving the majority. John and Laura will serve as stand-ins for the grandchildren. The trusteeship will pass from Laura and John to each grandchild when they become 21. Laura receives the additional portion if any is left over. Next week, Laura, John, and the children will meet with me. I'll tell them everything I know. They will want to know why I'm doing this and will need to sign documents. My liquid assets, personal property, and the funds from James's loan will make up my personal value after this is over. In the worst situation, Emily's share of the trust's assets and worth will be minimal. I'll distribute the few personal belongings I wish to give to the children and grandchildren over the course of the upcoming weeks. My lawyer already has access to those in a secure area. A few of you made remarks on my health. I'm not resisting this, to be clear. I'm not experiencing any negative side effects from any treatments because I'm letting nature take its course. The family also observed that I was getting weary more readily. I dismissed it as simply growing older. The cough that started it all is still with me. My lung tumors were the cause of the diagnosis. I dismissed it as a persistent cough from a previous illness. When other problems start to surface, I anticipate things going south rather quickly, but by then, everyone will be aware. I want to be with the family as much as I can. With all of their various responsibilities, a big vacation would be difficult, which is why I found this week to be so crucial. It was the final time I could spend a lot of time with them all. We'll see, but I'm considering taking a quick trip for myself. I want to spend a day with every child and grandchild individually. That is my next objective. Update: the twins, Laura, John, my lawyer, and a notary came to my farm today. I've finished the things I needed to, and this process has gone about as smoothly as it could have. The family is understandably upset. The tension in the room was evident when everyone came and saw my lawyer and the notary. I requested that they simply sit and listen to me, and then sign the documents once I was done. I would respond to all of their inquiries after signing the paperwork. Everyone is aware of the trust. I informed them that it was time for me to give them authority over the trust. I explained how crucial the trust had been to my life, why I had established it, and how we had decided to keep it apart from my marriage to Emily. Additionally, I included instructions on how I wanted the trust to be used and managed. We clarified that the twins and the grandchildren would share the trust, with Laura and John serving as stand-ins for the grandchildren until they are all 21 years old. They signed the forms and had them notarized, which demonstrated their confidence in me. Following that, copies were compiled, and I fired the notary and my attorney. I thanked them for coming out on a Sunday after seeing them out. As usual, they were both polite. They were all silent when I went back to the dining room, which was also being used as a conference room. The first person to break the hush was my daughter. It was not so much a question as a stream of thought. I began by talking about my health as soon as she paused. I described my diagnosis. I heard them planning how we were going to combat this. I stopped them right here. After outlining the likelihood and letting them know that I had already had a second opinion, I informed them of what you are all well aware. I will not be seeking treatment, I will allow nature to do its thing. We argued for the next hour or an hour and a half. Laura had to go fetch my daughter after she fled the room many times. My son John and I had a heart-to-heart while they were away. They can relate to my perspective. They understand, even if they disagree. Everyone agrees that once things settle down, Laura and my daughter will change their minds. When did I find out? That was the next question I knew was coming. I informed them. After that, there was more anguish and rage. I clarified that I was not a walking corpse and that I wanted one more holiday week. I was self-centered. After the holidays, I wanted my diagnosis to be made public. For the rest of their lives, I didn't want it to ruin their vacations. Sensing there was more, my daughter started investigating me. Until everything was out, she would not leave the room. Why in the world hadn't Emily told her, she asked. I dropped the final bombshell at that point. I explained to them what I had done in my initial post. For the first time, I could actually see my daughter's eyes blaze with rage. I then informed them that Emily is still unaware that I'm aware of it. I suppose you all prepared me effectively since I addressed the schemes and plans they had in mind, scenarios you all suggested, and I responded to the same questions. I assured them that I valued them far more than Emily in the end. I simply want to be at peace and not worry about Emily for the rest of my life. During the holiday week, I had to defend what I had done. They also pieced together her going outside to breathe and her decision to go into town without the grandchild. They were concerned that I was doing this by myself. I informed them that I have pals on social media that support me throughout my darkest moments. I still want this space for me, but I won't tell them where or how, they'll find out later. We've been discussing intermittently as a group for a few hours, and the emotions were pretty raw. However, I informed them that I had to return and discuss the trust. They are aware that the trust will be highly beneficial in preventing Emily from gaining access to my hard-earned money. She didn't attend this meeting because it protects them. Having stated that, I had to disclose the trust's finances. They all probably thought of the trust as a way to avoid paying taxes or as a way to safeguard assets in a marriage if the children are from a different woman. They weren't ready for me to give them the money. The audience became quiet as I began to review the balance sheets and assets. Then came the inevitable question. Why did you have this much after all those years of hard work? I gave them my personal financial theory, which they had heard a lot of times and had absorbed. However, I informed them that I had been living off the trust for years. I trusted them enough to send them to college. With that faith, I set aside time in my life for them. And because of that trust, I was able to work for a non-profit organization essentially for nothing. If I were to leave them and their kids with one example, it would be to utilize this trust to better the lives of others, not simply to sometimes write a check to a charity, but to work for a cause they support. By educating others and fostering relationships, I've achieved far more in my years with this nonprofit than I ever could have with a check alone. I'm not pleased that I was responsible for so many positive and negative changes in everyone's lives around that table today. Although everything didn't go as planned, it's finished. They are fully aware of it. I pleaded with them to let me deal with Emily and to keep the trust a secret. For the time being, we'll maintain the status quo, but when I recover, things will be different. They all concurred. Over the course of the following few hours, we divided into smaller groups, spoke, cried, laughed and prepared a supper. I expect the twins to return, but they all left an hour ago. I love my two in-laws very much, and I know they'll tell their spouses what's going on. That's just the way they are. I was aware that this was the last peaceful evening I would have. Even though I feel like a weight has been lifted, concern has taken its place. A brief update is provided. One of Emily's pals paid me a visit, which caught me off guard. Her name is Carol, and she is roughly Emily's age. Last week, she went out with Emily for a girls' night out. The girls actually spent the evening at Carol's place. If you have read my remarks, you are aware that Emily used a ride-sharing service and returned home pretty drunk last week. Emily and Carol have been friends for a long time, but I suppose that after more than 20 years of marriage, Emily has forgotten that I introduced them. My folks were friends with Carol's parents. I suppose Emily's instability has been exacerbated by my unpredictable behavior, and last week's girls' night was a tipping point for her. She became so drunk that she told Carol about her romance. Carol reportedly urged her to stop talking, but she persisted. She continued to provide more and more information, which infuriated Carol. Emily continued to lay forth an endless stream of details while attempting to explain her behavior in response to Carol's constant criticism. The following day, Carol contacted Emily. Emily apparently had no recollection of the previous evening. Carol summed up Emily's confession, but Emily denied having an affair outright, saying Carol was wrong and that she didn't say such things. Emily was told by Carol that she was full of lies, and she was given a week to come clean or else she would tell me directly. Carol paid me a visit over coffee since Emily said she had said nothing. Emily gave me a condensed version of her confession. I surprised Carol by informing her that I already knew, even though she anticipated me to be distraught. When Emily made this confession, I asked her if anyone else was present. The only other person in the house was Carol. If Carol had told anyone else, I inquired. She was angered by that. Before telling me, she assured me she wouldn't spread such a thing. I apologized and clarified that adding more people would make my preparations more difficult because I had my own schedule for handling Emily. Carol understood. As a favor, I begged her to keep it a secret from everyone and to give Emily the impression that she believed her. Carol felt the second section didn't feel right, but she did agree with my original request. I assured her that I would be all right and begged her to try. Carol stated I only needed to ask if I needed anything else. When Carol learns about my condition, I'll have to apologize again, but I'll take care of it another day. I will thus confront Emily tomorrow. I'm going to calmly tell her what I know about my condition and how I'm going to live the rest of my life without her on our regular date night tomorrow. I hope there won't be much drama because it's public. After dessert, I'm going to approach her. I'll tell her what I know and request that she not get in touch with my family or me. Let's see how it turns out. According to Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yes, not all plans work out the way you had hoped, and mine is no exception. Allow me to lay out my plan for you. Emily and I usually go to the same restaurant for our weekly date night. We have a regular table because we have been visiting there for so long. It's at the back, away from the lively atmosphere beside the bar, but still open to the public. I made the decision to confront her here. After dessert, I intended to do it. I made accommodations for my lawyer and his spouse at the same time. Before we started, I paid the waiter, who has been serving us for years, for both of our meals. After I left, Carol was available to assist Emily. I intended to discuss our relationship as we finished the meal. After recording it, I intended to approach her, explain how I found out about the affair, let her know I was diagnosed, and lay out my future plan. I would write a letter to her requesting that she not come to the farm or get in touch with my family. They would witness the letter. Along with the divorce papers, I would hand her a briefcase full of supporting documentation before getting up and leaving. I thought she would keep quiet to preserve her social standing. Yes, I did videotape the exchange. She raved about our excellent teamwork and the wonderful relationship we had developed over the years. I questioned her about my treatment of her, whether I had ever mistreated her, etc. Certainly not, she said. I then questioned her about her infidelity. She claimed that although she was unaware of what Carol had told me, Carol was mistaken. I informed her that I knew before Carol did. Emily was obviously rattled at that point, and I believe everything she had prepared to respond to this talk vanished. Her face's color also changed. What? Was the only thing she could ask. She nodded in agreement when I requested her to give me some uninterrupted time to do this. Her once self-assured and arrogant demeanor changed to one of deer in the headlights. She was just able to nod. I described how after my doctor's appointment I hurried home to have the most challenging conversation with the one person I wanted to talk to. I clarified that I saw his car when I pulled up. After that, I noticed that the cameras were in privacy mode. I made the decision to visit the farm. She nearly cut me off when I reminded her that I still had film, but I simply raised my hand to remind her to wait. I informed her of my diagnosis and my intention to not battle the illness. I became enraged when I noticed the anguish in her eyes. How could she be sad about me? But I took a step ahead. The waiter came over to fetch my lawyer after I gave her a signal. Both of them arrived at our table. I was given a briefcase and a letter-containing folder by my lawyer. I informed Emily that when I left tonight, I didn't want her to get in touch with me or my family or visit the property. I asked the server to see me signing the letter. After that, the lawyer and server observed me hand Emily the letter. Then I brushed them off. Finally, I handed Emily the briefcase. I informed her that I knew a lot more than she had anticipated. I was completely ruined. I informed her that I had already signed the divorce papers, which she could sign to begin the divorce process. I informed her that I didn't think I would make it through a contentious divorce. She can remain at the house in town as long as I'm here, but I'll be at the farm. After tonight, I won't see her again. Excuses were not what I wanted to hear. I informed her that I had phoned Carol to assist her in getting home. Emily maintained her poise in public as usual. She simply said, "But," and I informed her that I was finished and heading out. The owner apologized for not alerting him, and I went to the server and left her a nice tip. I saw Carol and my son at the door as I was leaving. Carol smiled briefly as she walked past me, but her eyes were worried about Emily. I was driven to the property by his wife when my kid seized my truck. On Friday night, my son and his spouse stayed with me. At midnight, I eventually persuaded them to leave for home. I felt a lot of comfort when I went to sleep, but I also felt a fresh sense of loss. Nevertheless, I managed to complete the task at hand. On Saturday, the family stopped by the farm to check on me. It was a nice day, until Carol stopped by in the afternoon, but I felt a little pampered. She claimed that despite Emily's breakdown on Friday night, she spoke with her affair partner on Saturday. After the talk, Emily became aware that she was in a terrible position and that he was only using her. Carol made careful to let me know that although Emily didn't want her to get in touch with me, she believes that if I could have a brief conversation with her, it might give her the willpower to avoid me. Carol is skilled at phrasing her requests. I grudgingly consented to speak with Emily for 2 hours at the farm. Emily could pick someone to be there for her, and I would have someone there for me. It would be a polite discussion. I refused to be diminished, blamed, or the target of blame shifting. The meeting was intended to give her answers regarding the next steps. The waiter came over to fetch my lawyer after I gave her a signal. Both of them arrived at our table. I was given a briefcase and a letter containing folder by my lawyer. I informed Emily that when I left tonight, I didn't want her to get in touch with me or my family or visit the property. I asked the server to see me signing the letter. After that, the lawyer and server observed me hand Emily the letter. Then I brushed them off. Finally, I handed Emily the briefcase. I informed her that I knew a lot more than she had anticipated. I was completely ruined. I informed her that I'd already signed the divorce papers, which she could sign to begin the divorce process. I informed her that I didn't think I would make it through a contentious divorce. She can remain at the house in town as long as I'm here, but I'll be at the farm. After tonight, I won't see her again. Excuses were not what I wanted to hear. I informed her that I had phoned Carol to assist her in getting home. Emily maintained her poise in public as usual. She simply said, "But," and I informed her that I was finished and heading out. The owner apologized for not alerting him, and I went to the server and left her a nice tip. I saw Carol and my son at the door as I was leaving. Carol smiled briefly as she walked past me, but her eyes were worried about Emily. I was driven to the property by his wife when my kid seized my truck. On Friday night, my son and his spouse stayed with me. At midnight, I eventually persuaded them to leave for home. I felt a lot of comfort when I went to sleep, but I also felt a fresh sense of loss. Nevertheless, I managed to complete the task at hand. On Saturday, the family stopped by the farm to check on me. It was a nice day, until Carol stopped by in the afternoon, but I felt a little pampered. She claimed that despite Emily's breakdown on Friday night, she spoke with her affair partner on Saturday. After the talk, Emily became aware that she was in a terrible position and that he was only using her. Carol made careful to let me know that although Emily didn't want her to get in touch with me, she believes that if I could have a brief conversation with her, it might give her the willpower to avoid me. Carol is skilled at phrasing her requests. I grudgingly consented to speak with Emily for 2 hours at the farm. Emily could pick someone to be there for her, and I would have someone there for me. It would be a polite discussion. I refused to be diminished, blamed, or the target of blame shifting. The meeting was intended to give her answers regarding the next steps. The meeting took place this morning. I don't know why, perhaps to limit the harm, but Emily picked Carol, and I went with my daughter. In order to prevent this from happening again, I wanted Emily to feel as comfortable as possible. I had a clear direction and aim going into the meeting. To get rid of Emily. The conference proceeded according to plan. Emily sought to downplay the affair while crying and apologizing. I refused to put up with it. I explained that she needed to come to terms with the fact that she would have a home to reside until my death. The trustees would make the decision regarding the house after my passing. I clarified that she would not get any money from my estate or the trust, but she would be okay since she has her trust and her 6-figure pension. "Why won't you fight for me or us?" she said, and I have to vent about it. "I just don't care about you or us anymore," was my response to her, even though I nearly lost my anger. She was kind of wrecked by that. This is where I vent my rage. This is what a self-centered cheater thinks. They only consider themselves. They believe they are valuable enough in the eyes of the person they have destroyed to be worth fighting for. Although she didn't want them in retrospect, she received the answers she requested. Another meeting is not something I want. I believe that holding more meetings only serves to divert my attention from my goals. After leaving with Emily, Carol returned a few hours later. I spoke with her briefly. The trustees reportedly informed the affair partner that they would be converting the loan into shares in his business, and since the trust will own the bulk of the shares, they are requesting a thorough forensic audit. With her MBA, my daughter isn't wasting any time. I suppose Emily recognized what I had already thought when she turned to him for solace. He was exploiting her to try to get her to buy the debt from me. I suspected he was up to something because of several casual remarks in the recordings. The affair partner now knows that I sold the debt to the trust after the paperwork was filed, and since Emily is no longer in my life, he can no longer utilize her. He informed her. It seems that Emily also told Carol that she would only have her pension income going forward because her trust had run out. Compared to me, she thought living with the affair partner was more glamorous. She genuinely believes that his wealth surpasses mine. While my husband played on his farm, drove an old truck, and we traveled economy class, he travels in first class, drives lovely cars, and dines at upscale restaurants. When he declared his unwavering love and desire to marry her, she was preparing to file for divorce. I find it disgusting that she is so shallow and greedy. Although I won't be able to see it, I anticipate that my family will inform her of my value when I pass away. I'm so relieved that her actual nature has come to light so that I can deal with her and protect my family. Then Carol surprised me by doing something very different. Since I'm no longer burdened, she advised me to call her if I need company. Why would she or any woman want to spend time with me given my diagnosis? I questioned her. Nothing long-term exists. She retorted that any divorced or widowed lady would be eager to spend what time she had left with me, even if Emily was naive and unaware of what she had. She claimed that I'm a great man and that she would treasure any time spent with me. She even made a joke about how many women would be lining up to call me, so she might as well be first in line. She replied, "But most people won't know Emily and I are separated. Emily doesn't want the social groups to know, but she and Laura will make sure her tale is heard," she added. Being courteous, I promised to inform her. She kissed me on the cheek and grinned. After she departed, I gave it some thinking, but I'm fairly certain that I don't want that hassle in my life at this time. These are the highlights, although I left a lot out. It has been a roller coaster, but I'm doing fine. I just need some quiet time for a few days. My condition and the dissolution of my marriage will soon be known to the social circles. There will be a never-ending flow of well wishes for me. I didn't want to be treated differently, but I knew I couldn't put it off indefinitely. But life happens as it does. Update. To start, I'm doing fine. I'm still above ground and warmer than normal. Being on my feet every day is a blessing. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable and my coughing has gotten a little worse. I see that it's getting easier for me to wind up. But all in all, this week has been fantastic. First, let's talk about Emily. She's disappeared. Her standing in the community has quickly and severely collapsed. She was respectfully asked to step down from all of her leadership positions after it was made public. She has been severely criticized by the majority of her circle, who have even asked her directly if she pursued their husbands. She has made several attempts to contact me, but I have not answered. I urged the individual to tell her that I had stated what I needed to say and that I knew what I needed to know, even if there were a few efforts made through proxies. It doesn't really matter to me if she needs closure. Why should her self-centered need for that concern me? She understands my feelings. I even shared some of the affair's specifics with her. At least 6 months have passed since it began. They traveled together 3 times. Once as newlyweds, once as a couple commemorating their 20th wedding anniversary, and once as a couple who met on vacation and stayed at the same hotel. Role-playing must have been an element of their relationship. She used our home because she felt at ease there and because it is tucked away from the road, making it impossible for onlookers to see the automobiles in the driveway. She even purchased a second vehicle for herself and kept it in a local parking garage. In order for no one to recognize her car when she traveled to the affair partner's residence, it seems that she switched cars. Perhaps in order to avoid me catching her, she was rather worried about how people in her social circle would perceive this. The amount of work she put into the affair is evident from her acts alone. All of these endeavors help me to firmly establish my feelings and my approach to handling the affair. I don't regret anything I've done. My unpredictable nature was only partially to blame for the inebriated revelation to Carol. It seems that he began to distance himself from Emily as soon as he received the news that I was selling the affair partner's debt to the trust. She must have gotten drunk and vented to Carol because she was under pressure to avoid being caught and since her affair partner was no longer interested in her. You are aware of what follows. I think the affair partner's motivations for getting involved in the affair were very obvious. Emily is made even more pitiful by this, which in no way excuses her. The affair partner apparently needed Emily's assistance with his loan, while Emily desired a more opulent lifestyle with his wealth. It's fascinating how unattractive individuals are drawn to one another. We can find better mates if all of us nice folks just let the vile people get together. I apologize to those who strive on reconciliation out of dedication. It was not for me. My daughter's goals have angered the affair partner. In court, he seems to be attempting to stop her. More money is all he stands to lose. Rumor has it that he has attempted to gather funds from other investors in order to repay the loan, but sadly for him, word of his conduct has already begun to spread among my business associates. Do you recall that you should invest in people rather than businesses? Well, not many people are interested in investing in him. I'm not sure what my daughter has in store for his business, but she will put in a lot of effort to make sure it survives, just for the people who work there. I believe she is concerned that the partner in the affair may have something to conceal in the company's records. I hope it's something that can be fixed for the benefit of the staff. It has been wonderful spending time with family. This week, my family and I attended a high school basketball game. I organized a poker night as well, and it went really well. At the game were my son, my grandson, and a few old friends. The grandson witnessed how traditional men spent a night together, sitting around sharing stories. I'm hoping to add a couple more of these. This week, our family has eaten together 3 times. One evening, Carol did visit and bring food. I kept her at a distance as we conversed and ate. I'm still hesitant to let her in. Farm chores provide me comfort. I assist with equipment maintenance, check on the staff and animals, and occasionally drive the fences. I feel at ease knowing that this farm will remain in the family and continue to operate. I will always have a piece of myself. Many of my friends and acquaintances have paid me a visit. I believe this is what someone meant when they spoke of a living wake. I'm urging everyone to visit me outside. Even if it might be our last time together, I like spending time with these people. I was in the hospital for a few days, but I'm home now. I was taken to the emergency room after they discovered me breathing but unconscious. Despite my do not resuscitate order, I never passed away. I have always detested hospitals, and now that I have been diagnosed, I detest them much more. I don't wish to pass away there. I've spent some time at home. I'm unable to drive off the farm anymore. I'm determined to continue performing my duties and taking in the sunrise and sunset for as long as possible, even though they really don't want me to drive on the property. I also employ full-time home health aides, or babysitters as I refer to them, but I won't argue with the family about that. Basically, until I woke up in the hospital, I had no memory of anything. Carol and the majority of my family were present. By that point, I was stable, and the physicians only wanted to keep an eye on me for a day or two while, of course, doing more tests just to be sure. Carol, Laura, or my twins were with me nearly all the time. On one occasion, I woke up alone in my room with Emily by my side. She must have played the wife card on a duty nurse who was unaware that she should be denied entry. She was playing the kind and loyal wife, but I was exhausted. I have no idea why. I withdrew when I noticed she was caressing my head and holding my hand. She was wounded. She then began a new refrain in which she apologized profusely, claimed she was attempting to take advantage of him, and that she didn't mean anything she said to him. I did nothing but sit there. She was furious by this. She insisted that I speak with her. The nurse noticed her because she was just loud enough. Emily's behavior and my uneasiness were observed by the nurse. The nurse was slick. She wanted to do some checks, so she instructed Emily to wait outside. The nurse asked me whether I was all right when Emily left the room and the door was shut. I informed her that there should be notes stating Emily is not permitted because she was my ex-wife. After expressing regret, the nurse asked how she might help me feel less stressed. She should phone my emergency contacts, I asked. Carol and Laura, my daughter, entered the room after around 45 minutes. Emily had returned by that point and was still babbling, albeit quietly. Emily knew she had to go as soon as she saw them. I whispered to her to leave. She didn't deserve to cause a spectacle for any of the other patients. I told her to get over her self-centered thoughts and just go. She gave me a short peck on the forehead before leaving, which I really appreciate. For the sake of the other patient's peace, I backed down a little, but whatever. I received a lot of apology from the women in my life. Since they have their own lives, I can't really be angry with them. They all came up with a way to guarantee that I'm always accompanied. I'm never by myself in the house because they switch shifts. Carol and my daughter have been especially watchful. To keep an eye on who enters and exits the residence, they even built a security system. Even with all the craziness, I occasionally find some serenity by listening to the animals at dusk, seeing the sunset over the fields, and knowing that I've done everything I can to make things right before my time comes. I am appreciative of my family and friends' love and support. Emily's intrusion was distressing, but it strengthened my resolve to cut all ties with her. Now, I'm concentrating on the time I have left and creating memories with the people who are most important to me. To ensure that I would never be left alone again, they planned shifts. My daughter probably expressed her gratitude to the nurse for summoning them and her ire at the staff for allowing Emily to enter despite clear orders to the contrary. This incident just serves to highlight Emily's tendency to grasp at anything, much like a drowning person. She doesn't think I'm unique. She only views me as a tool to help her stay afloat. Every time I interact with Emily, I am struck by how much more sinister and evil her soul is. The partner in the affair is still just as much of a jackass as he was. In conversations with my daughter, his accounting department essentially provided her the full picture since they know where the wind is blowing. The affair partner has not engaged in any illegal activity related to his business. He was obviously abusing every benefit and legal loophole to boost his income over his base wage at the expense of the company's bottom line. He will be extremely irritated when my daughter assumes leadership because he will see a 60% decrease in the company's value to him. His flamboyant lifestyle is going to face a brick wall because I have a suspicion that she may simply terminate him and demote him to a silent minority owner position. Although he has threatened legal action, he has not yet taken any concrete steps. His reputation and credit are severely damaged, in my opinion. Carol is now a more enduring presence in my life. I must admit that I enjoy the company and friendship. Perhaps she is exhausting me. Several days a week, she has been staying over. I'm hoping to recover as quickly as possible, but I'll need to rely more on other people now that I can't drive. I have never been in this situation before. Carol has volunteered enthusiastically to help me in this area, and before you ask, no, we are only sitting next to one other. This evening, it's time to unwind and begin dinner. I want to thank everyone once more for their support. Your messages mean a lot to me, and I will make an effort to go back and reply to them all. Update. I regret to inform everyone that my father passed away last week. He asked me to give you your letter from him, among other things. You are aware that my time here is coming to an end if you are reading this letter. I made movies and wrote letters to every member of my family, as many of you suggested. That made me decide that I should write one last letter. To all of you, that letter is addressed. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their suggestions and support. I have valued this brief period of life greatly, and my family will undoubtedly value it long after I am gone. That final Christmas week spent with my family was my last present to myself and to you. I would have had to turn to my family if I didn't have a place to vent and get support, which would have meant giving up on my objective. It may not be a present to my family now, but it will be in the future. The amount of fun I had creating those short flicks is beyond words. Thanks to all of you, my family will have another little piece of me. Without your advice and support, I never would have made any of those goofy little videos. To be honest, I never would have considered it. For all of you, I do have one request. My family will experience a range of emotions. I am aware that you all want a resolution, which is why I put my tale out there. Please refrain from making too many demands for updates and give my family time to grieve. I have requested that they provide you with this letter and, if possible, a final update on Emily. It is up to them to make that last update. Please be patient, everyone. Lastly, from the great beyond, I send you my best wishes and all the love I can provide. Keep in mind that nobody can guarantee tomorrow. Recognize the value of life and savor each moment. Treat yourself and those around you with kindness. I pray none of you have to follow in my father's footsteps, but if you do, know that I will do everything in my power to support you. Keep in mind that you are all really valuable. Nobody should ever tell you otherwise. From wherever I wind up, I'll give as many virtual hugs as I can. Thank you is all I have right now, yet it frequently feels so insufficient. I appreciate everything you've done. I hope that we will cross paths again in the hereafter, but not too soon. To be clear, I am the daughter of the individual who sent the letter in the last update, whom some of you believe to be my brother. In fact, it was me. I'm happy Dad left you all this letter so he could express his thoughts. In terms of Dad's death, he did not endure the same level of suffering as others who would have had his illness. I find solace in the fact that he passed away peacefully while he was sleeping. In keeping with his character, he had scheduled an autopsy in advance to make sure Emily couldn't use any aspect of his illness or demise to challenge his wishes. He had a knack for making plans for everything. I find comfort in the knowledge that there was some mercy at the end, even though it turns out that he died of a heart attack. He was cremated as he requested. While the remainder were scattered during the spring planting, some of his ashes were interred with a monument in an ancient farm cemetery. His desire to be a part of the land he loved so much was fulfilled. Emily wasn't there when we had the memorial on the farm. Security had been set up by the funeral home to make sure she couldn't go. For years, Dad had been trying to get us to move to the farm. When he retired, he even planned out home sites in the hopes that we would all move there. He had been made fun of, but we didn't take his suggestion seriously. In retrospect, I regret giving her such sway. My brother and his wife, along with my husband and I, will be relocating to the farm beginning this year. We have chosen a stunning location. At our insistence, Mom and Tom will move into Dad's home. We should all be closer together. It just feels right. Regarding Emily, witnessing her world fall apart has taught me what it really means to be a pariah. Her personality has entirely changed, and she appears to have aged 20 years in just a few months. She challenged the trust assignment and the will, but those issues were promptly settled, and she was unsuccessful. Although Dad had already given away the things he desired, she did receive their joint assets. The main problem was that she couldn't claim the house in town, which Dad had owned before they were married. She pleaded with us to give it to her. In one of the most fulfilling moments of my life, I promised her the house if she returned to using her maiden name as her last name. She accepted the offer even though the house is worth much less than the happiness she would get from removing her father's last name. I anticipate her selling the house and moving out. I don't really care, but I hope our partner has learned a valuable lesson in life. The company is in the process of rebuilding, and we have selected a new CEO. Carol received a single trust share. As Dad would have wished, we will look after her. Because of what she did for our dad, she has been a pillar of our family and will always be regarded as such. Our last update was in 2024. I am quite saddened by the fact that this will be the first year of my life without my father. I wanted to swing by and update everyone on the situation with my father's family. We celebrated our week-long holiday custom, which my father loved very much, as you are already aware. The week was excellent, if bittersweet. Dad was successful in uniting Carol and the rest of the family. We cherish her romantic, if you will, time spent with my father during his most trying times. He left one last gift for each of us, along with messages for the entire year. They moved us to tears and were so considerate. He gave Carol one final task, but I anticipate that there will be letters for the grandchildren at all of their significant occasions. The first occurred at a high school graduation last spring. This year, the home's construction is moving forward. I began to understand what Dad cherished about this farm, the seasons and the life cycles that exist here. I now have a better understanding of his choices from the previous year. Even while I still disagree with some things, I now have a greater understanding. Not as fervently as he did in the end, but it's just another barrier between us. I also began to observe the sunrises and sunsets at Dad's sites. Lisa has had a difficult existence. She had a stroke in the autumn. She survived since it was discovered in a timely manner. She is still undergoing rehabilitation in a care facility. Although she can now speak in a basic way, she still finds it difficult. She is still working on getting back to walking. She still has a long way to go. Her social circles have shown some sympathy for her health problems. Even the grandchildren of Mom, Tom and Dad have set aside their suffering to see her. I may never be a really philanthropic person. About the affair partner, I don't know a lot. He has vanished from my professional network. All I know is that a bankruptcy law firm did send an inquiry letter to the corporation. We haven't yet seen any formal filings. In terms of the business, it is profitable even without his financial support and direction. Every employee received a handsome bonus, and we controlled the debt. We are now closer because of Dad's last presence and his kind writings. By continuing to live on the farm and treasure the memories Dad left us, we continue to uphold his legacy. Every sunrise and sunset we witness from his favorite locations reflects his influence. In the place he cherished, his soul endures. I appreciate everyone's help along the way. Am I the asshole for telling my trans friend she needs to disclose that she's trans to the man she's seeing? Using a throwaway account for this. I have a friend, known her for years, since we were young and she was pre-transition. We're older now. She's had work done, and been on hormones since she was a teen. If you met her, I can honestly tell you, you'd never guess she was trans. However, she does still currently have a penis. She tends to go with men who are fully aware she is trans. She had said that she was trans on her dating profile. She's moved away now, we still talk. She eventually told me she met a guy around 2 months ago, they're dating. She then went on to tell me that she met him on a new dating site she was trying out. I thought nothing more of it. The next day she messaged me, and we were talking more about him, and then she told me some things, including that he has no idea that she's trans. She didn't disclose it on this new dating profile, and she just hasn't told him. I asked her why and also said, surely you've slept together. No. She's often slept with men she's dated by now, so I just assumed. She said no, and that he's being patient on the sex, she's making him wait, but to keep him sweet she's sucked his cock and given him handjobs a few times. I then just outright said, you need to tell him, and she said I will, but I want him to fall for me a little more first. This isn't like her, and I was dumbfounded to be honest. I told her you can't wait for that. You need to tell him, sooner rather than later. 2 months is already a while, and he may be disappointed or even get mad if he finds out. And she said, why would he be mad if he really likes me? And I just said, respectfully, and I'm sorry, but you still currently have a penis. He's a totally straight man, who thinks he's dating a biological woman. She didn't like me saying that. I get it, but I think it's important that she tell him. I tried to explain to her that this could also be dangerous for her in not telling him sooner. You never know how this guy might react. Not every man is so open to trying that out. Some men like strictly pussy, and it would appear that this guy thinks their pussy is waiting for him in her pants. She sent him underwear pics where she's tucked tightly. Honestly, you would never know. I think it's a dangerous game, and I told her that 2 months is too long, and I think she was silly to wait this long. But now she's freaked out and worried. AITA? I'm basically here seeking whether I was right or wrong in my brutal honesty. Am I the asshole for altering my cousin's wedding dress after she gave it to me, then uninviting her from my wedding after she got upset about the changes? Original post, I, 18F, am getting married in the middle of October to my boyfriend, 19M. We're planning on a smaller scale wedding with mostly just friends and family, and considering that we both have large extended families, it was definitely a challenge planning for that many people. For a general idea of how big my family is, just my mom has 7 siblings who all have children of their own. With our small budget, I was looking at redesigning or upcycling a wedding gown instead of having to devote a huge amount of money towards a brand new dress. I mentioned my plans to a couple people and was in the process of looking at options when my mom's oldest sister's daughter, my cousin, reached out to me. Megan, 40F, got married in 2015. The marriage didn't last very long and they got divorced soon after. I barely remember the husband, as he never came to family gatherings, and Megan and my mom aren't particularly close, so I was surprised she was offering something so important after a long time of distance. Regardless, Megan had offered to give me her wedding dress, as it was my size and she knew we were trying to avoid spending a crazy amount on a small budget. I loved the idea and the dress was beautiful. I did make sure she was comfortable giving it to me rather than loaning it, and she assured me that it held no emotional significance and she couldn't care less if she didn't have to hang on to it. I thanked her and took home the dress. One thing about me, however, is that I am a very chaotic seamstress, and I make the majority of my own clothes. And while I did love the original dress, I wanted to make some small changes to the hem and neckline to fit the theme better. The original dress was super full skirted with a long hem, and since my wedding is outside, I wanted to make sure it wouldn't be dragging in the dirt. So I took some layers off the underside, removed the trim and removed the sleeves to tighten the bodice. I was so happy with how it turned out, and my mom and friends agreed that it was perfect. Here's when the trouble started. My mom had taken a picture of me trying on the dress and decided to send Megan a picture alongside another thank you. However, she responded with a cold comment over text and called me later that night. She said that I should have asked her permission before ruining her dress, and that if I had thought it was so ugly before I should have bought my own. I tried to explain that the changes I made were small, and that I did ask before I took it if she wanted it back afterwards. She blew up at me saying that it was too different, and that she could never wear it again, even though she never gave the impression that she wanted to. Megan has already started before that she has no interest in getting remarried ever. I asked what she wanted me to do and she snapped at me that it was too late. She hung up and has apparently been telling people I slutted out her wedding dress and made sure I would embarrass her by outdoing the original dress. I don't know what to do about it. The wedding is way too close to consider making myself a dress, and I have my heart set on having something unique and personal for my wedding. Her mother called both me and my mom saying I should have asked, that I'm a spoiled brat for taking advantage of Megan's kindness and generosity. My parents and a few family members who I've told think I should uninvite Megan and just wear the dress, but my aunt is saying I would break Megan's heart unless I find something else. Should I give up on my dress and see what else there is? To provide some context and answer some questions, Megan and I are not super close, from both the age gap and different lifestyles. Megan is the 3rd cousin out of 21. I am the 9th. Megan, being the first girl child in the family, grew up with a lot of expectations and pressure, and ended up marrying a very religious and controlling husband. After her divorce, Megan went through what can best be described as a breakthrough and re-evaluation of her life and ambitions. Since then, she has completely changed her job, appearance, and opinions. She is no longer an active member in family events and only takes part in important ones like birthdays, funerals, and weddings. Despite this, we have never had any problems between us and our interactions have always been civil and kind. Secondly, the alterations I did were only limited to the skirt and bodice. The slutted out comment apparently stemmed from my removal of the sleeves, turning it to a sleeveless top, and raising the hem to a T-length. My ankles are exposed now. Someone had pointed out to me that Megan's anger was a product of her own self-esteem, as she has naturally grown and gained weight since then, which I could definitely see even though she is still beautiful. And thirdly, I am definitely planning on regular updates if any more incidents happen up to the wedding, and a full breakdown with photos after the ceremony. Thank you to everyone for their kind messages and loving support. You've all made me feel so much better and I appreciate you taking the time to comment. Update. As of yesterday, I found out from my fiancé that Megan had reached out to him with false concern about how my home-styled dress gave the wrong idea about our wedding and had the audacity to ask him, the man I've been in love with for nearly 3 years, if he was sure he wanted to marry a woman who wouldn't put in the effort of getting a proper dress. She says this as if I hadn't spent weeks sewing the dress to make sure it was perfect. Thank goodness my fiancé wasn't upset by her attitude and responded that I had put way more effort into the dress than she put into her marriage, and that shut her up real fast. She turned around and apparently has been crying to my elderly grandparents, her mother, some of the other cousins etc. that I'm a trashy whore with a cheap shotgun wedding. I'm not even pregnant LMAO, with a fiancé who is only interested in our family's money. My fiancé is a mechanic, and regardless of the fact that he is doing really well and makes a pretty good salary, she still seems to think he's beneath her. Some of my older cousins, the ones I don't talk to as much, have actually expressed concern about whether or not they want to go to the ceremony at all. I blame my aunt for spreading misinformation, which I managed to assure them wasn't true. After all of this, I reached out to Megan saying that because of all her comments and insults she is no longer invited to the wedding. I admitted that I was sorry for the situation, but I can't keep pardoning her rude comments on what is supposed to be a happy time in my life. She snapped that she wouldn't show her face at my pathetic excuse for a wedding, and that she can't wait to see how I act when he leaves me. Overall, I am pretty confident that Megan and I's relationship might not recover, but at this point I don't regret anything. Here's hoping everything else cools down in the next couple weeks and I can go into our day with no negativity at all. Am I the asshole for altering my cousin's hand-me-down wedding dress after she told me I could have it? Top comments. Commenter 1, wear the dress, invite the cousin. Use the pieces of the dress to make a decorative pillow for your rings and present it to her at the reception as the best cousin ever for gifting you the dress. It will be a public moment and you will never hear about it again. Commenter 2, totally NTA. Your mom blew it by taking photos and posting. That was unfortunate. Issue 1. Issue 2, do you have that text or email agreement, paper trail, of her IDC about the dress convo that you can refer back to? Sorry that you're going through this. This isn't something any soon-to-be bride needs to deal with. Truly, sounds like she was more emotionally connected to that dress than she thought. There's nothing you can do at this point other than add a note of appreciation of her selfless offering of the dress. Don't uninvite her, just make sure one of your MOH are watching her on your day. Commenter 3, NTA. If your cousin didn't want it changed, she should have said, don't make any alterations. It sounds like you made some sensible changes, don't let her ruin your day. Commenter 4. Your cousin specifically told you that she was giving you the dress and she didn't want it back. So now you are the owner of the dress. You can make any changes you want to it. She can't come back later and attach conditions to the gift. It's your dress OP, you should wear it. Let aunt and cousin know that you will be wearing the dress and they are welcome to attend, but you understand if that's too much for them. Update. Hi everyone, I made a post on this subreddit a few months ago about my 18F wedding dress and all the surrounding drama that came from it. I had been given my 40F cousin's old wedding dress from a failed marriage and altered it to better fit the needs of my ceremony and my style. She did not appreciate the changes and became very rude and hurtful. My wedding was 6 days ago and I was asked to do an update, and I am happy to share how it all went down. I am still so happy how my dress turned out, and was very glad to have shortened the train, as there had been rain the night before and morning dew on the grass. The shorter hemline saved me a lot of mess and damage in the long run. Plus, I felt beautiful and it made such a special day all the more amazing. I had told my cousin, Megan, that her behavior was rude and unnecessary and that I did not want her bringing her unpleasantness to my day. However, her mother, who had been one of her primary supporters, had apologized in order to go to the ceremony. So while Megan herself was not actually at the wedding, I had not completely excluded the issue. Megan's mother, 71F my aunt, is your basic senior white woman, and usually expresses her opinions in a loud and unspoken manner, so I was uneasy in the beginning when she arrived. She didn't make a fuss throughout the ceremony though, and everything went smoothly. I sneezed while walking down the aisle, but that wasn't anyone's fault in particular. The reception was at an outdoor garden where we had set up under a gazebo with a temporary floor for tables and eventually dancing, with a slightly elevated platform for the big table and speeches. This is where my aunt decided to make sure everyone knew about her daughter's dress. After a few speeches, following my friend's champagne rendition of that time we went camping and the tent slid down a hill, she made her way up to the podium. She started her speech in the usual, unassuming way, congratulating us and remarking on how far we've come as people. Unfortunately, she decided to tie this statement into a comment of, "You've even made your own dress." I mean, not really, actually, it was Megan's first. She then went on into how she remembered shopping for the dress with Megan for her own wedding, and going on and on about how it was perfect and made for her. At this point in the speech I was just staring at her in confusion, while my husband and everyone else just sat there awkwardly waiting for her to be done. She finished her speech with a half-assed backtrack to me looking lovely and wishing us good luck on our marriage. She mumbled back to her seat and let the ceremony keep going, looking entirely too proud of herself. Other than that, the only other trouble she caused was her apparently showing everyone she could manage a photo of the original, which is really not that bad in the grand scheme of things. I am so happy that my family and friends were able to be there and celebrate with us, and can't wait to see what comes for us next. Thank you again to everyone who commented and reassured me in the beginning. You've all been so kind. Who knows, I might even dye the dress another color and keep it around just in case an appropriate event comes up. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. When you got the dress, did you get permission to alter it? Perhaps there might have been an expectation for it to go back to her when you were done with it. OOP, I did. I mentioned in my original post that I had asked specifically if it was mine to keep and she agreed. That was a big worry of mine in the first place, but she told me she had no attachments to it. Commenter 2. You should reach out to your aunt and thank her for making a speech showing her support of you and your marriage. You got so many compliments on the work you did to the dress after she pointed out that you did all that yourself. Everyone was super impressed by the before and after pictures, so you wanted to give her a personal thank you. I think that they would have made comments about it being cousin's dress, and shown pictures, if you didn't make adjustments. So I think you picked the better path. Commenter 3. Once someone gives you something, it is yours to do with as you wish. If she didn't want you to alter it in any way, she should have put that condition on the give. Then that way you could have refused it since it wasn't as you imagined your dress to be. You weren't wrong and your aunt and cousin need to suck it up and never mention it again. Am I the asshole for cutting ties with my dad after years of being blamed for my mom's death and refusing to pay his rent? Since the day I was born, my life has been challenging. You see, my mother died in the hospital while giving birth to me. After that, I was raised by my father, who somehow held me, a physical baby, responsible for his wife's premature passing. Not a day went by during my upbringing in our home without my dad reminding me, in his own cruel manner, that I was the reason my mother disappeared. He would never stop telling me that he never truly wanted me and that my birth had taken away the person he loved the most. He would remind me that I had to work hard and live up to the enormous price my life had paid. If not, my mother's passing would have been pointless. Hearing those cruel remarks as a child was terrible, as you may understand. I was too young to completely comprehend the intricacies of wrath, sorrow, and sadness. I also needed my mother, but she was no longer with me, and the only parent I had left acted as though I were the issue. Instead of protecting me, guiding me, and providing me with comfort, my father became the one who never stopped reminding me that I was not welcome in his life and that my very presence was a curse. It was quite challenging to grow up in that setting. I frequently felt bad just for breathing and existing. At times, I longed to speak with him and express how wounded I was by his remarks and how they made me feel as though I didn't belong, even in my own house. But I didn't speak because of fear. I was greeted with greater resentment and rage the few times I tried to speak up. The outcome was a childhood characterized by a strong feeling of isolation and loneliness. I felt like I was always on edge, trying to prevent my dad from being even more resentful of me, while other children had parents that supported them, consoled them when they were depressed and made them feel comfortable. The existence of so much resentment and hate toward that aspect of myself that I couldn't alter, the mere fact that I was alive, was just as painful as the absence of love. I made an effort to comprehend my dad's suffering in spite of everything. I was aware that Dad had been devastated by the loss of my mother and that he had never really recovered. However, that didn't make it any simpler to live with the consequences of his statements. As a young child, I was attempting to figure out where I belonged in a world that frequently seemed unfriendly and chilly. I still secretly yearned for his acceptance, love and approval in spite of all the hurt. Despite everything, I always hoped to somehow make my dad proud. Every time I brought home a report card with decent scores, I recall the excitement I felt, hoping that perhaps this time would be different. Excited to show him what I had done, I would approach him in the hopes of receiving a grin or a supportive remark, anything that would give me the impression that I was enough in his eyes. However, it was always the same. He would groan, hardly look at my grades, and advise me to keep working harder at my studies because they were still not good enough. He would argue that it wasn't a huge deal because hundreds of other children could receive the grades I did. I was greeted with disinterest and a continual reminder that I wasn't living up to his standards rather than pride or satisfaction. For him, no matter how good I performed, it was never enough. I was affected by his disapproval in areas other than academics. Every time I wanted to engage in extracurricular activities with my friends or play sports, he would quickly put an end to it. I was informed that my studies were the only thing I needed to concentrate on in order to leave his house as quickly as possible. I was reminded by those hurtful remarks that I was not a child to be cherished and cared for, but rather a burden. I didn't have the same parental support as my peers, who would talk about how their parents pushed them to pursue their interests and cherish their youth. I was always reminded that I was only a visitor to his home and that I had to follow instructions or face expulsion. The weekends, which ought to have been spent unwinding or enjoying friends, were no exception. Even if all I wanted to do was go to the park or hang out at a friend's house, he would go on a tirade about how I was squandering his money if I ever asked to go out or spend time with my friends. He'd start a tirade about how hard he was working to pay for my education and how I had no right to squander time or money on friendships. It seemed like he instinctively judged anything that made me happy or gave me a sense of normalcy to be trivial or undesirable. His reaction to my 15th birthday stands out as one of the most agonizing memories I have. For me, it was a day of dread, yet most children anticipate their birthdays with joy, organizing parties or get-togethers with friends. He disliked me celebrating my birthdays every year, but I believed that year would be different. I wanted to get some pizza and watch a movie with my pals. He had a fuss when I eventually plucked up the nerve to approach him for money. He yelled at me, saying that since it was also the day my mother died, I had no right to enjoy the occasion. He made it plain to me that I should never even consider having a good time on my birthday since it would always be the worst day of the year for him. I never celebrated with my pals because of this. As you might guess, I eventually learned from all of these recurring situations that my dad obviously detested me and didn't want me around. I felt like I was always walking on thin ice, trying to avoid doing anything that would make him angry or disapprove, as a result of the incessant rejection and criticism. I gradually discovered how to keep my aspirations to myself. I knew it would only result in disappointment and hurt, so I stopped looking to him for encouragement or acceptance. In order to get out of my dad's house, I put all of my effort into achieving good marks and did my best to be strong for myself. I eventually saw the results of all the effort, tenacity, and resolve I put into my studies. I still recall the day I was accepted to a prestigious institution with a full scholarship. It was a mixture of pride and relief. At last, I was leaving the house, escaping my father's controlling influence and beginning a new phase of my life where I could live as I pleased. I felt as though a tremendous burden had been removed when I left home. I was genuinely free for the first time in my life. I had some of the best times of my life throughout those 4 years of college. It was a time of joy, progress, and self-discovery. I was able to experience all that had been out of my reach for so long and live like a typical young adult at last. Even though he made an effort to exert greater control over me from a distance, I stopped listening to my dad. I'd had enough of living under his rule. It was time for me to take charge of my life and create the life I want. Even with my newfound independence and the excitement of college life, I never lost sight of my objectives. I maintained my good marks because I was eager to take advantage of the chance I had worked so hard to obtain. However, I also made sure to have fun and take advantage of everything that college had to offer. I joined clubs, attended parties, made new friends, followed my interests, and at last began to live my life as I had always dreamed. I met Sheila, my girlfriend, about this time. One of the most amazing and surprising things that happened to me in college was meeting her. There was something about Sheila that captured my attention right away. We are both very similar in that we are driven, ambitious, and career-focused. Beyond that though, our deeper connection was what truly set our relationship apart. No one else ever understood me the way Sheila did. The fact that we can sit together for hours on end without having to talk to each other is one of my favorite things about her. She lets me lose myself in my thoughts, which is really uncommon in relationships. I never feel under pressure to be someone else when I'm with Sheila. Whether we are sitting side by side, content in our solitude, or discussing our aspirations and ambitions, we appreciate each other's presence. For the first time in my life, Sheila gave me the genuine sense that I didn't need to bear the shame I had been carrying around for so long. She was able to see straight through the misery I had been experiencing. Pain that had grown so pervasive in my life that I was virtually blind to its abnormality. Sheila emphasized how terribly incorrect it was for my father to hold me responsible for my mother's passing and how no child should have to deal with that. She urged me to go to therapy, which I had never given much thought to before. I didn't even know there was a method to break free from my dad's influence because his words were so embedded in my brain. One of the things that changed my life the most was going to therapy. At first, it was difficult since it required a lot of bravery and work to face the truth about my childhood, admit the trauma I had experienced and learn how to destroy the harmful ideas I had internalized. However, therapy let me see things that nothing else had. It made it clear to me how faulty my dad's reasoning was and how much I was worthy of better. I gradually came to understand that my dad's resentment and rage were his problems, not mine, and that I wasn't responsible for my mother's passing. I saw that my anger toward my dad increased as I began to recover. It seemed as though all of the bitterness I had been harboring was at last emerging. For years, I had been carrying the guilt he had placed on me while attempting to gain his favor and be the child he desired me to be. However, I was now coming to the realization that I had nothing to do with that and that he had unfairly and cruelly burdened me with his rage and anguish. I found it challenging to keep up any sort of contact with him during my time in college because of this rage. I rarely spoke with him, and when I did, it was tense and brief. I couldn't help but be resentful when I yelled at him, and I wasn't very patient when he tried to manipulate or be critical of me. I finally confronted him about everything at one point. It was a spontaneous outburst of repressed emotion and frustration rather than anything I had planned. I explained to him how his words and deeds had severely damaged my mental health throughout the years he had held me responsible for my mother's passing. And how I was determined to stop him from doing that to me. I made it plain that I was tired of being used as a scapegoat and that I was entitled to dignity and respect. If not, I would sever my relationship with him forever. This time he had nothing to say. I had thought that he would apologize, but he didn't refute what I had said either. I observed a shift in my dad's interactions with me following that talk. Every time he spoke to me, he seemed to attempt to be kinder and less severe. He seemed to be trying to change, to be more sensitive to my emotions. However, our relationship remained tense in spite of this. A minor change in behavior was not enough to undo years of suffering and animosity. Although I was grateful for his attempt, it would take more than that to mend the relationship. If it could be restored at all, given the harm he had caused. Even while my connection with my dad remained strained over the years, I no longer felt the same kind of shame or rage. I've gradually realized that although I can't alter the past, I can manage how I allow it to impact the future. Sheila's encouragement and support have undoubtedly been crucial to this journey, and I am immensely appreciative of her for assisting me in realizing my worth as a person deserving of respect, love and happiness. My dad recently married DEI, his lover. I chose to go to the modest private wedding with my girlfriend Sheila, in spite of everything that had transpired between us over the years. As they embarked on this new phase of their lives together, we wanted to offer our support and best wishes. I was pleased for my father and believed that he may improve as a result of getting married. But my dad called me a month after they were married, seeming desperate. He was having financial difficulties as a result of some bad financial decisions. He informed me that he was facing eviction after failing to pay his rent for the previous 6 months. He claimed that he couldn't discuss this with his wife since it would cause them to argue. He asked me if I could pay his rent right now. As soon as I heard this, I declined. Given our complex past, I didn't want to be used as a financial safety net, even if I had the resources to do so. I didn't want to create a situation where he could come to me for financial support if things went wrong because I've worked hard to create the life I have. However, I began to feel bad after discussing it with Sheila. I couldn't get rid of the thought that perhaps I was being too severe, that perhaps he really needed assistance, and that he was still my father in spite of everything. I then gave my dad a call back and suggested a middle ground. I informed him that since I lived alone in my house and had enough room for him and DEI, I would let them to remain with me temporarily even if I wasn't willing to pay his rent. Until they saved enough money to get back on their feet and locate a new place, I offered them they could stay at my house. Considering everything that had transpired between us in the past, it wasn't an easy decision, but I believed it was the right one. I made it apparent that this was only a short-term solution and that I wanted him to put in the effort to get back on his feet. After considering my offer for a while, my dad finally gave me a call and accepted the deal. He and DEI moved in with me in 2 weeks, and I prepared a guest room for them. For us all, the first month or two was a time of transition. I hadn't lived with my dad for years, and we had changed significantly since then. I was no longer the adolescent who had to put up with his remarks in silence. I had my own life, rituals, and habits as an adult. Unfortunately, his previous patterns quickly reappeared. As though nothing had changed, my dad began making remarks about my habits and manner of life, including how I spent my time, maintained the house, and even handled my daily tasks. He seemed to have something to say all the time. However, I had changed from who I was before. I wasn't going to give him that much control over me this time. Every time he began to criticize me or try to dictate how I lived my life, I would tell him to stop. I would make it plain that, particularly while residing under my roof, he had no right to criticize my decisions. I was forceful, but I wasn't impolite. I refused to let him tell me how I should live any longer. Naturally, his wife, Dee, was not pleased with this. She said a few of times that I should respect my father. She would explain to me how much he had given up. Since I knew the truth about him and she obviously didn't know about half of the things he had done to me as a youngster, I would just shake my head. Although I respected my father, I wasn't going to let him control me or override my decisions. I wasn't going to repeat the cycle of sacrificing my happiness to satisfy my father, something I had done for far too long. Nevertheless, I would simply remain silent any time DEI made those comments because it wasn't my place to tell her the truth about my dad. There was no point in arguing about it. Although I was aware that cohabitation would be difficult, I thought that eventually we could all figure out how to get along without too much conflict. However, one evening after a particularly demanding workday, I returned home to discover my dad and his wife watching TV in the living room. The kitchen was overflowing with dishes, and the house was a complete disaster. Since I had frequently reminded my dad and his wife that they needed to do their fair share of the housework and that it was his day to clean, I questioned him about why he hadn't done it. "You know," Dad began in that tone that always made me tense, "you're a grown-up who I raised all by myself after your mother died. Asking me to perform additional work for you at this age should make you feel embarrassed. You're capable of doing the dishwashing yourself." Hearing such statements infuriated me so much that I retorted, "You know what's truly embarrassing? The fact that you were the one who pleaded with me to move in for free. And now you're sitting here on my couch, in my home, eating my food, watching my TV and giving me directions. This entire time, neither you nor your wife have offered me any assistance. You know what? You can just pack your bags and depart at any time if you don't feel like doing the dishes." My father simply looked at me, surprised by how strongly I had responded. For an instant I feared he may actually stand up and storm out of the tense quiet. But knowing that he had nowhere to go, I turned and left the room, slamming the kitchen door behind me as my heart raced with impatience and rage. When I came downstairs the following morning, DEI and I were by ourselves in the kitchen. It's likely that my dad left early for work. DEI asked if she could speak with me as I was ready to leave the kitchen. I decided to sit down and listen even though I wasn't totally sure what to anticipate. DEI looked serious as she started to explain to me how upset my dad was following our talk the night before. She claimed that given the amount of money he had allegedly spent to assist me in purchasing my home, I had no right to treat him in that manner. My dad hadn't provided me with any financial support since I left for college, so I was understandably shocked. I had saved hard for years to purchase this house with my own funds. The assertion that he had made a substantial contribution to my acquisition was wholly untrue. When I asked DEI what she meant, she clarified that my dad had told her that he had contributed to my property purchase by using some of his savings. It seemed almost funny to me that this was the story my dad had given her, and it was like a light bulb going out. DEI persisted in saying that I should be thankful for the assistance my dad had allegedly provided me before I could reply. She believed that since he was having financial difficulties, it was only right that I begin paying him back some of that money by housing them while they were living with me. She argued that since this was essentially my dad's house as well, it was the least I could do in light of the alleged financial sacrifices my dad had made for me. I couldn't help but giggle at DEI as I continued to stare at her face. I mean, I couldn't take it seriously because it was all so ridiculous. When I eventually stopped laughing, I told her the truth. My dad hadn't paid $1 and I was the real owner of the house. Her expression was priceless. She was obviously unaware that I was the owner of the house, and she must have been overcome with shame and rage. In response to her question about whether or not my dad had ever assisted me, I explained that he didn't even have enough money to cover his own rent, So how could he ever afford to buy my house? She didn't protest much after our conversation, so I assume she saw the truth too. Shortly thereafter though, she gathered her belongings and departed from my home that same day. Since it was none of my business, I didn't stop her. When my dad returned home later that night, he contacted DEI and asked her why her belongings were gone. He began blaming me for speaking out after he learned that I had told her the truth about who owned the house. He claimed that by disclosing the truth, I purposefully ruined his marriage and caused his wife discomfort. He claims that since he now felt inferior to me and that it was somehow my responsibility that he couldn't afford a house of his own, I ought to have been more understanding and allowed her to believe his lie. It was unbelievably frustrating. I made it clear to him that I was offering them my house in order to help them, and instead of receiving appreciation, I was being held responsible for their issues. My dad seemed to have forgotten that I owed him nothing and that he was the only one at fault in this situation. Even as an adult, he was attempting to use me as a scapegoat for something that wasn't my fault, as if all the years of him treating me like I was the issue had suddenly returned. He refused to listen though. He didn't see my point of view and demanded that I call DEI to apologize and make things right by lying, giving her the impression that he had assisted me in some way when I bought this place. I said that I would not tell his wife a falsehood on his behalf. The continual manipulation and finger-pointing had worn me out, and I had had enough. My mental health was beginning to suffer as a result of my dad's continual arguments with me, so I finally told him that I could no longer bear his presence. I requested that he get his belongings and vacate by the next day. I took the painful decision, but in order to preserve my own tranquility and sanity, I had to set and uphold boundaries. My dad argued that he had nowhere to go and begged for more time, but I was too upset at the time to give a damn about his predicament or his justifications. The following morning, I enforced my choice and forced my dad to vacate. Since DEI won't talk to him, my dad has been contacting me to whine about how I have destroyed his marriage and his life. He claims that a good son would never have ejected their parents and continuously blaming me for DEI's current situation. Update 1. I'm relieved that everyone is aware of the immense trauma my dad has caused me over the years. Many people have suggested that I get in touch with DEI and tell her the truth about my early years because she could not be completely aware of my dad's true identity. I've stayed out in his affairs up until now, but I think it's crucial that she understands the truth because he may have misled her about other matters. I'm going to get in touch with her and speak with her directly. Update 2. A week has passed since my last update. DEI and I finally got a chance to sit down and talk about everything. As it happens, she was unaware of the type of upbringing I experienced. I told her about my emotional trauma, blame, and the effects it had on me. She appeared astonished and acknowledged that Dad had presented a very different image of himself, suggesting that he was a struggling single parent who had given up everything for his child. I was so shocked that I had to shake my head. I told tales of my early years and how I was always held responsible for my mother's death. She conveyed her understanding and concern. I then told her how fortunate I was to get a well-paying career and how hard I had fought to establish myself during college. I was able to move into my own place and save money as a result. I explained to her that I didn't enjoy my father controlling everything around my house because, as a child, he never let me be who I was. DEI recognized my suffering. She then disclosed that Dad had lost all of his money as a result of gambling, and she hadn't told me about it before as he wanted to hide it and was too embarrassed about it. She clarified that she had flatly rejected my dad's initial offer to move in with me. She didn't feel comfortable living with me, so I suppose that's why my dad lied to her and said that he had helped pay for my house, which made her feel less bad about accepting the offer to remain with us. She was upset though, when she subsequently learned from me that his claims of helping with my house were completely false and really another ploy to achieve what he wanted. She went on to express her embarrassment at having to ask me for rent that day. I informed her that Dad was solely responsible for his falsehoods and that it wasn't her fault. DEI told me as we were leaving that she intended to take some time away from Dad to think about their relationship after our talk. Update 3. Hello everyone. I am aware that it has been 3 months since I last made any updates to this page. Since I requested my dad to move out, I have severed all ties with him. Although it hasn't been a simple decision, it is essential for my emotional and mental well-being. He tried to point the finger at me for everything the last time we spoke, but I stopped talking to him. I simply blocked him right away. I must say that I've been feeling a lot better ever since. I feel relieved and more clear-headed now that the pressure and manipulation have subsided. I feel as though my privacy and tranquility have finally returned. Sheila, my girlfriend, has been really helpful during this process. She has supported me, helped me process my feelings, and offered consolation and encouragement. Her assistance has had a significant impact, and I am truly appreciative of her. I'm gradually discovering a new sense of security and contentment now that my dad is no longer involved and Sheila is by my side. I'm concentrating on creating the life I desire, working for my objectives, and appreciating the good things in my relationship. Am I the asshole for cutting ties with my family after years of being overshadowed by my disabled sister's needs and feeling invisible? Emily, my younger sister, has always been the center of my family's existence. Even though she is a year younger than me, it has always seemed to me like she lives in a completely different universe that is solely centered on her. Because Emily was born with a physical disability and ongoing health problems, her life was filled with doctor's appointments, treatments, and special accommodations. Naturally, my parents devoted nearly all of their time and energy to making her life as easy and happy as possible, and I could see why. Nevertheless, it also meant that I was abandoned at a very young age. I took on the role of the easy and healthy kid, which came with the expectation that I needed less care and upkeep. I learned early on not to worry about it because Emily's needs always came first. I would nearly always stay behind when Emily couldn't, either at Aunt Linda's or with a neighbor, depending on Emily's ability to cope. They would frequently say, "We will bring you next time." But I never felt like it would happen. I didn't simply miss the big family holidays. Emily was almost always at the center of even the small everyday activities, like going to the park, buying ice cream, or watching a movie with the family. Sometimes I could comprehend it logically, but it still hurts emotionally. Her needs always came first, even though I would be excited about the idea of us all doing something together. I felt unnoticeable. The first time I truly felt the weight of being forgotten was on one of my birthdays. I must have been 8 or 9 years old by then. There was no cake, no celebration, and no acknowledgement of the day. I woke up that morning with the thought that maybe, just possibly, something unexpected was in store for me. However, as the day went on, it became very evident that my parents had completely forgotten my birthday. Their main goal was to get Emily to a concert that she had been anticipating for several months. They talked enthusiastically about the performance when they got home. As I listened, I questioned if they were even aware that it was supposed to be my special day. It wasn't until the next morning that my mother realized her error. Even while I appreciated the gift card she hurriedly grabbed as an afterthought, it was painfully obvious that the excitement of Emily's concert far outweighed my birthday in their universe. For many years, this pattern persisted. My parents were constantly focusing on Emily, and I was expected to accept that. Being understanding at all times, avoiding conflict, and blending in while everyone else's needs were taken care of was a heavy burden for a young youngster. I felt more noticed and appreciated whether I was by myself or at friends' houses, so I started spending more time there. A year ago was my 10th birthday. For weeks, I had been hinting that I wanted to do something fun. Like go to the arcade or throw a pizza party. It was significant to me because I was finally getting close to double digits. As my birthday drew near, however, it became very evident that nothing was scheduled. I wanted them to surprise me, but I forced myself not to get excited. Maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. On the morning of my birthday, however, there was no celebration. There was no mention of it during breakfast, and the day went by like any other. Emily was the center of attention because she had been having a rough week with her health. Even though I knew she required more attention, I still felt disappointed. My school friends recalled, wished me a happy birthday, and even collected some money to buy me ice cream for lunch. It was a small thing, but it made the day seem less empty. I thought maybe my folks would remember when I got home that afternoon. However, the house was silent and my mother was on the phone setting up Emily's next therapy session. My father was still working. It should come as no surprise that no one acknowledged that today was supposed to be mine. Trying to make the most of it, I went to my room. What is the point of saying anything? It wouldn't make people remember, and it certainly wouldn't make them feel sorry. The following day my mother finally realized she had missed my birthday again. She apologized and explained how busy she had been with Emily. As usual, I nodded and claimed it was all right, but it wasn't. Even though I knew in my heart how things would work out, they assured me that we would make up for it that weekend. I desired to have faith in them. We stayed at home during the weekend though, because Emily wasn't feeling well enough to go out. Rather than celebrating or doing something special for Emily, we watched her favorite movies. As an afterthought, my dad brought home a store-bought cake, but by that point, it felt more like a consolation prize than a celebration. It served as yet another sobering reminder that in my home, Emily's needs and desires always came first. I had given up on having many dreams by the time I turned 12. I didn't focus on making any requests or offering any agenda suggestions. I spent the entire day playing video games, doing my homework, and helping out around the house. That year, my parents did remember to wish me a happy birthday, But there was a brief acknowledgement before everything was back to normal. That day, Emily went to see another doctor, and she was the center of attention again. That birthday hurt the most. Even though it wasn't particularly awful, not because of anything noteworthy, but rather because of how typical everything was. Habitual neglect as opposed to malicious neglect. My needs barely registered since my parents were so accustomed to giving Emily all of their attention. They neglected not just my birthdays but also my accomplishments in school, my hobbies, and the things I held dear. The acknowledgement was swiftly followed by dismissal. Resignation hardened by the disappointment. I stopped expecting something different as I grew older and realized that this was just the way things were. Celebrations of friends' birthdays began to act as a reminder of what might occur. At home, however, the story was consistently the same. As the years went by, I became accustomed to my invisibility. My parents constantly seemed to be somewhere else, so I learned to have modest expectations. It wasn't like they didn't care about me in their own way. Even though Emily's requests were always more urgent, more immediate, and somehow more important, I started to emotionally distance myself, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. It was easier to be satisfied with coming in second, third, or not at all, and it was easier to not expect anything. During all of this, my grandparents were my lifeline. They were the ones that noticed the small details about me and gave me a sense of importance. Every time I went to their house, I had the impression that I had entered a different realm where I could see myself. Making everything unique was something my grandmother was particularly skilled at. Each time I went to see her, she let me pick out something to bake. No matter what we made, cookies, cupcakes, or even simple spaghetti, she had an old recipe book that was worn and battered. Her kitchen was our thing. My childhood was filled with joy on such afternoons. She made sure I understood that I was more than just another kid, I was her grandson. Grandpa, however, was the reserved type. Although he didn't say much, he was trustworthy and always present. He loved model trains. His basement was crammed with tracks, little houses and miniature scenery. I loved how he included me in something he enjoyed, not because I was a rail enthusiast. It was the only area where I didn't feel like an afterthought, and I spent hours down there with him. My grandparents complimented me on every small achievement I made that my parents didn't notice. After I scored my first soccer goal, Grandma prepared a special dinner and baked a cake. Grandpa even put the ball I used in the game in a small display in the living room. They made it feel like a huge deal in their place. Even though it was just a local soccer match, it was important to them because it was important to me. However, such pleasant things are always taken away by life. It was 3 years ago that Grandma fell unwell. It was a long fall, reflecting the slow erosion of my childhood happiness. It wasn't abrupt. She continued to attempt baking with me at first, but as her condition worsened, our sessions shifted to my sitting next to her bed and holding her hand as she slept. Long before she was gone, I missed her. Her death truly broke my heart. It felt like losing everything when I lost the one person who gave me a sense of belonging. The funeral went very quickly. There were many faces expressing sorrow, but it didn't feel genuine. Although Grandma was no longer with me, it felt more like a piece of me had. After that, Grandpa changed. His once warm eyes became aloof. Our visits decreased, and he stopped hanging around with his trains. What had been my sanctuary felt chilly and empty now. Because the house was too full of memories, Grandpa eventually went into a nursing home in a different city. I could understand why it was sold, but it still felt like another aspect of my youth had been lost. It wasn't the same when we went to see him once a month. The antiseptic visitor's room lacked the coziness that had previously made our time together memorable, and our visits were short. We were both unable to mend the raw wound caused by Grandma's absence. The barrier against the loneliness I experienced at home disappeared after Grandma left and Grandpa moved far away. Everything became controlled by Emily's needs, and life resumed as it had always been. The contrast, however, was suddenly even more noticeable. My grandparents made me visible where my parents had unintentionally rendered me invisible. It was absorbed by every family decision, every discussion, and every medical procedure Emily had. My words appeared to disappear as soon as they left my lips when I tried to discuss friends or school. They didn't appear to be picked up. I became more reclusive at home, and I typically declined friends' invitations to hang out at the university. It was easier to avoid queries about why I felt the need to pretend everything was all right or why I was always so miserable. Everyone was aware of Emily, of course, but nobody had any real idea what it was like to live in her shadow. Since Emily did not select her health problems, I felt ashamed, but that did not make the actual suffering of neglect any less genuine. Specifically, the guilt was awful. I felt terrible because I wanted more attention. and I was upset that Emily was constantly given priority. Feeling important was more important than merely getting attention. Despite my parents' best efforts, I still felt like I was peering in from the outside. At this point, I brought up family therapy for the first time, but I had no idea what to anticipate. I thought I'd give it a shot. My parents consented, much to my surprise. Maybe they thought a professional could assist close the growing distance between us, or maybe they didn't know what else to do. In any case, we were seated in a calm office with a therapist who appeared sincere in wanting to hear from each of us. We started going to therapy sessions on a regular basis. I was a little optimistic at first that things might get better. I was able to finally communicate what I had been experiencing for a long time early on in those sessions. I expressed my desire for them to take notice of my hobbies and recognize my achievements, as well as how it felt to be the one neglected. It had been a while since I felt as though my parents were actually paying attention or that they recognized the profound impact their deeds, or lack thereof, had on me. They appeared taken aback, possibly even shocked. Tears, apologies, and vows to improve were exchanged. For a few moments we appeared to be moving forward. My parents paid closer attention and were more considerate. They found time for me alone, for things that weren't Emily's purview. We went bowling, saw a movie, and visited a museum. Even though it was unpleasant at first, it felt great to be the center of attention for a brief while. But Emily was aware of the shift. Since she wasn't used to sharing the limelight, her jealousy quickly surfaced. Small remarks like how much fun we must have had without her or how wonderful it was for her to have some alone time at home were the first subtleties. However, those comments quickly became more. She sobbed throughout dinner one night, saying my parents were favoring me and ignoring her. According to her, the reason they loved me more was because I was normal. My parents were shocked by the accusation and hurried to console her. We started to lose the delicate equilibrium we had been establishing. We stopped going on family vacations as often, and when we did, Emily's jealousy took center stage. My parents went back to their old methods because they couldn't decide whether to include me or control Emily's emotions. It quickly became evident that I was only living in Emily's reality once more. I felt bad for disturbing things, so I proposed that we resume our regular routine. I decided that accepting my position on the sidelines would make things simpler for everyone. However, our therapist disapproved of that notion, reminding us that the purpose of treatment was to disrupt these negative habits rather than to strengthen them. Even though it seemed like we were going nowhere, we persisted. The majority of our sessions were dominated by Emily's sentiments of envy and abandonment. Even in therapy, which was meant to benefit all of us, she continued to take center stage. Despite my frustration, I failed to find a solution. One session reached a breaking point when Emily accused my parents of loving and preferring me more. My parents went into a self-doubting, guilt-ridden spiral after the accusation. The progress we had been making was compromised as they rushed to reassure her. It was tiring to see the same patterns being repeated over and over. I started to question whether going on with therapy was really necessary. I was so exhausted. I was simply exhausted and no longer upset. I'm tired of attempting to articulate how I feel and of holding out hope that things will improve. I began withdrawing once more, both from the treatment sessions and from my family. I started to lose the tiny hope I'd been holding on to, the hope that perhaps things could be different. That change occurred within me. I came to terms with the fact that this was the way life would be. Therapy had become just another ritual in which I expressed my emotions, only for Emily's desires and sentiments to take precedence over mine. My parents couldn't come see me since they were too involved in Emily's life. I accepted that information as true. I had lost my anger. I had exerted every effort to draw their attention to me and help them comprehend what it was like to be ignored. However, it was obvious that they were set in their ways, and I was out of energy to challenge it. I started to completely stop going to therapy. What use was it to repeat the same things over and over again if nothing was going to change? My parents were aware of my increasing distance, but they were unsure of how to respond. They seemed to be only going through the motions when they tried to interact with me. Whether they inquired about my day or made awkward attempts to strike up a conversation over dinner, there was no genuine connection. My withdrawal was also observed by Emily. She had a mixed response. On the one hand, she was glad that she was once again the center of attention. There were still a lot of questions, on the one hand. She started questioning me about trivial topics, such as my after-school activities and the games I was playing. She didn't know how to connect, and to be honest, I didn't either by this point. We were both unable to overcome the hurdles that had been put in place by years of mistrust and misunderstanding. I began focusing on my studies and personal hobbies. I made friends, joined groups, and concentrated on things that had nothing to do with home. It was comforting to be surrounded by people who knew Emily yet recognized me for more than just her sibling. I came to understand that I didn't need my family's approval by spending more time at school and with friends. I could establish my own personality without having to worry for my sister's demands. One day, during a particularly difficult therapy session, everything came to a head. I had been listening in silence as the therapist brought up Emily's sentiments of envy and desertion once more. She was always the focus. I had made an effort to speak up earlier in the session, describing how it felt to be repeatedly ignored. However, the topic quickly returned to Emily's difficulties. I was used to it at this point, yet it seemed different that day. Perhaps it was the years of frustration building up, or maybe it was the understanding that I had had enough. I paused the session after taking a deep breath. I told them everything. I had the impression that my family was looking straight through me. How I had given up on the idea that things would be different. How Emily's needs always came first and birthdays, accomplishments, and little moments had become meaningless. I described how agonizing it was to watch them defend the necessity of the current situation and how I had finally realized that nothing would change. The room was quiet after I was done. My parents were surprised, as if they were unaware of how deeply I was hurting. The harm was already done, even though the therapist made an effort to steer the discussion in a more constructive direction. My parents defended themselves rather than owning up to the damage they had caused me. They discussed how difficult it was to balance everything, how important Emily's health was and how they were trying their hardest. Emily joined in, saying I was attempting to make her feel awful over something she couldn't control. When she was the one dealing with actual difficulties, she accused me of being selfish for seeking attention. I wasn't surprised by what she said, even though it hurt. The hidden lesson that my feelings were not as significant as hers was one I had heard before. The therapist made an effort to diffuse the situation, but the damage had already been done. That's when I knew nothing would change. My parents were unable to see past Emily's needs, and Emily was only able to see her own difficulties. I never really succeeded in making room for myself, so I was caught in the center. For me, that session was a turning moment. I made the decision to stop trying to make things better. I kept being caught between Emily's and my own demands after that. Now though, I was simply worn out. I had lost my anger. Peace was what I desired. The conflict was no longer interesting. I became progressively more reclusive during the following few weeks. I concentrated on my studies, looking for internships, college scholarships, and any opportunity to travel far from home and be independent at last. I started searching for distant colleges where I could start over without having to worry about the dynamics of my family. I craved distance, both physically and emotionally, even though I loved my family. I rejected my parents' suggestion that we consult a different therapist to get a different viewpoint. I had given up on attempting to fix anything that was too damaged. Despite their apparent disappointment, they didn't press the issue, either because they were growing weary of the never-ending battle or because they were starting to realize that some wounds couldn't be healed. However, Emily didn't appear to notice that I was withdrawing. She was once again the center of attention, and she was perfectly content with it. Every now and again she would inquire about my plans, but our discussions never progressed past the obvious. I didn't see a way to close the distance between us now that we had drifted apart. I became more and more preoccupied about my future. I applied to colleges, went to college campuses, and put myself into getting ready for life beyond high school. My grades improved, my friendships grew stronger, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was making progress toward a personal goal. I was creating a life apart from Emily, my parents, and the never-ending cycle of letdown. In the end, I received acceptance to a college in a different state. I could travel home if necessary, but it was still distant enough for me to be independent. When I told my parents, they were pleased for me, but I also felt sad. They must have seen that this was my method of bidding farewell to the family dynamics that had continuously molded me. They made no effort to persuade me to remain nearer to home. Rather, they only sent me their best wishes and said they would come see me when they could. I felt as though a burden had been removed when I left home. The independence that came with living alone thrilled me. I moved into a tiny dorm room after packing my belongings. The initial weeks were peculiar. The silence and the lack of Emily's incessant demands were unfamiliar to me. However, I quickly adapted to my new existence. I joined groups, made new friends, and found that I liked having my own identity. I was able to be myself for the first time in years, not the forgotten sibling, not an afterthought, just me. It was freeing. I discovered that I didn't miss home as much as I had anticipated as the months went by. Even though I continued to communicate with my parents, the distance gave me the freedom to unwind and discover my identity without having to worry about family responsibilities. I became aware that the resentment I had harbored for so long was beginning to lessen when we spent time apart. I no longer had animosity toward Emily, and I was no longer upset with my parents. Even though I hadn't always appreciated their best efforts, I now realized that they had done the best they could. Learning to let go of my expectations brought me serenity. Life in college was enjoyable. I was surrounded by individuals who noticed me, paid attention to me, and gave me a sense of acceptance. These close companions turned into family. We commemorated accomplishments, birthdays, and even the minor triumphs that my family had frequently disregarded. I was no longer only an afterthought for the first time. Being a part of something was an incredible feeling. Even though I had discovered a new sense of belonging, I still missed my family. I stayed in touch, but we only had surface-level interactions. The deeper problems that had afflicted us for so long were never explored. Reopening old wounds was something I wasn't sure I was ready for. So, liberated from the shadow of my past, I carried on living my life and making it genuinely mine. It wasn't flawless, but it was sufficient. I had been looking for a place where I could just be myself all my life. I had finally located that location. With time, the distance between my family and I became more about emotional isolation than it was about geographic distance. I was finally starting my own life without the burden of my family's past. I wasn't just existing at college, I was thriving. For the first time, I felt appreciated and seen for who I was, not only for what other people at home had classified me as, and I made friends who truly liked me. I would still occasionally contact home, mostly out of duty, but those conversations always felt pointless. My parents would nod courteously when I told them about my friends or school, but it was always obvious that Emily was still very important to them emotionally. As soon as I brought up her name, the topic of conversation would go back to her most recent health information, difficulties she was facing, and how she was handling everything. When it felt that my life was merely a footnote in their world, it was hard to stay involved in such discussions. I couldn't fully give up on the possibility that things would change in the future though. I was depressed even though I had long since moved on from the grudge. There was still a secret longing for a family that would embrace me the way they did Emily. My parents would simply give me a quick phone call or a fast text message to mark milestones, holidays, and birthdays. I had given up on expecting anything more by that point. I rejoiced with my pals, who had become my real family. They were the ones who made me feel important, who remembered my birthday, and who were there for me when I needed them. During my last year of college, I made the decision to spend Christmas at home one year. Since I hadn't been there in a long time, I reasoned that perhaps enough time had gone by for things to feel different. Perhaps I had changed and matured enough to manage the dynamics that had before overwhelmed me. The house was the same when I got there, yet something felt different. Maybe I was the difference. Perhaps the area that had made me feel so small was now too small for me. My parents' cordial welcome gave me a fleeting optimism that this visit would be unique. However, the old patterns quickly reappeared. Once more, Emily was at the center of every discussion, her needs, her challenges, her accomplishments. I listened politely, but as the days passed, I noticed that I was emotionally withdrawing and reverting to the corner I had occupied for so long. It seemed as though I had never been gone. Christmas morning was the decisive moment. My folks hadn't remembered to buy me anything. There was nothing for me as we sat around the tree exchanging gifts, no name-branded item, no sign of appreciation. I saw Emily's happiness light up the room as she opened her presents. My parents valued her so highly that they were oblivious to my silent existence. My life had been fashioned by years of overlooked milestones, forgotten birthdays, and subtle neglect, all of which were brought back to me in that moment. This time, however, I experienced acceptance rather than rage or sadness. I had finally come to the point where I didn't require their approval or affirmation. I didn't need them to congratulate me because I had learned to do it on my own. I silently packed my belongings that night and departed early the next morning. There was no conflict, no spectacular departure. I was aware that I had at last reconciled with my childhood family. Knowing they wouldn't change, I just turned away. However, I realized that I no longer required their space. In a family that didn't know how to provide for me, I had spent years trying to find a place for myself. In the world I had created for myself, I had discovered that place somewhere. Life continued. I got a job in a distant place after graduating with honors from college. It was everything I had ever wanted. A new beginning, a clean slate, unencumbered by my family's past, and the freedom to become who I truly wanted to be. For the first time, I felt genuinely pleased with what I had achieved, and my friends joined me in celebrating by throwing a party in my honor. I became acutely aware that my happiness was independent of my family after spending time apart from them. We never delved into the underlying concerns that had created our relationship. Instead, our interactions remained superficial when I periodically visited home. And that was all right. I had given up attempting to alter the fact that Emily would always come first for my parents. As the years passed, my life kept changing in unforeseen ways. I created a life that felt completely unique, surrounded myself with people who appreciated me, and got a job I enjoyed. I had discovered how to be happy without looking to my parents for attention or praise. I still occasionally think about my family, including Emily and her life to this day, as well as my parents, who still focus on her. I'm curious whether they ever consider me. If they ever consider what they missed or how things ended. I don't think about it though. I've moved on and accepted that things will always be difficult in my connection with them. In my opinion, a family is made up of everyone who supports you, accepts you for who you are, and loves you without conditions, not only your biological relatives. With more love and support than I ever imagined, my friends have grown to be like family. Though I've learned to love myself enough to let go of the desire for their approval, I will always adore my parents. The fact that I've created a happy life is ultimately what counts. I am incredibly thankful for the lessons I have learned, the strength I have acquired, and the person I have become as I sit here now and think back on the path that has led me to this point. I never lost myself, even though my family may have forgotten me in many ways. And that's what matters most of all, I've come to realize. My best friend abandoned her baby with me, now she's back to take her for a trust fund inheritance after her mother-in-law's death. We were freshmen at State University in 2013, which is when I first met Penelope, 29F. Our first encounter occurred when she wanted to borrow my notes after missing class due to the flu. We were both majoring in computer science. Following that, we began attending lectures together and eventually found ourselves in the same study group. We had a close-knit group of friends during our first 2 years of college. 6 of us would get together every Friday to study in the campus coffee shop before going to the neighborhood pizza place for dinner. Because Penelope and I were both only kids from middle-class households attempting to succeed in the computer industry, we grew particularly close. Both of us found employment in the same city after graduating in 2017. She found a job at a startup about 20 minutes away, and I worked at a software business downtown. We maintained frequent communication, getting together for lunch on Wednesdays and spending weekends with other local college pals. Penelope began dating Mike, a sales representative for her employer, around the end of 2019. I never really liked him. Even if he first appeared fine. He would frequently arrive late to group gatherings or abruptly cancel plans with Penelope. He ended their relationship by text message after roughly 6 months of dating. Penelope called me in tears 2 weeks after the separation to tell me she was expecting a child. Mike quickly blocked her number and moved to his company's office in a different state after she told him. It was very apparent that he had no interest in the infant. Penelope had my support during her pregnancy. I became her primary support system because her parents resided in Florida and could only visit periodically. I assisted her in shopping for baby goods, attended all of her doctor's appointments, and even watched YouTube videos to learn how to assemble a cot. The birth date of Emily was March 15, 2021. Due to inclement weather, Penelope's parents' travel was delayed, so I was in the birth room. I saw how difficult it was for Penelope to connect with Emily during those initial days in the hospital. Penelope was aloof despite the nurses' attempts to assist her with nursing and basic baby care. I began visiting Penelope's apartment every day after work when they returned home. I would prepare dinner, assist Emily, and frequently remain until 11 o'clock or later. I would take Emily for a little while on the weekends so Penelope could get some rest or sleep. With a crib, changing table, and more baby items than I ever imagined having, my apartment turned into a second nursery. When Emily was about 6 months old, the issues began to worsen. Penelope would phone me in the middle of the night to tell me that Emily's crying was too much for her to handle. Occasionally, when I got there, Emily would be crying in her crib and Penelope would be sitting on the couch. Penelope began skipping work a lot and hardly ever left her apartment. Penelope was let go by her employer in January of 2022. She started skipping work without warning after using up all of her sick days. Things truly took a turn for the worst at that point. She stopped taking calls from relatives and friends. Unwashed laundry was all around her flat, and unclean dishes were piled up. At 3 a.m. on February 12, 2022, Penelope gave me a call. I could hardly understand her since she was crying so much. She claimed Emily deserved more and that she was a bad mother. She pleaded with me to let Emily stay for a few days so she could get her act together. I was concerned about both of them, so I agreed. The following morning, Penelope delivered Emily to my flat along with 3 big bags of supplies and clothing. After giving Emily a deep embrace, she hurried off, promising to call Emily shortly. At the time, Emily was 10 months old. Penelope texted Emily every day throughout the first week to inquire about her. She wanted to know if Emily missed her, if she was eating well, and if she was sleeping well. Every time I replied with pictures and updates. Her text decreased in frequency and length throughout the second week. By the third week, when I asked her when she would return, she would only respond with a single word. A month later, she stopped answering altogether. I made every effort to get in touch with her. She had moved out when I tried to reach her via phone, text, email, and even in person at her apartment. She hadn't contacted her parents either. Despite my worries, I had to concentrate on Emily. I hired a part-time nanny to assist during video conferences and changed my work schedule to spend more time at home. Emily fared remarkably well. She was a cheerful baby all the time, and it seemed like having a regular routine helped. At about this time, she began referring to me as Dada. I initially attempted to correct her, but my mother claimed that since I was her primary caregiver, it was only normal. I got a certified letter from a law firm 3 months after Penelope left. In the legal forms in the packet, Penelope was asking me to adopt Emily and renounce her parental rights. In a brief letter, she expressed her inability to become a mother and her belief that Emily would live a better life with me. I contacted a family lawyer right away to manage the adoption procedure. The lawyer stated that adoption was feasible because I had been Emily's primary caregiver for months and Penelope was voluntarily renouncing her rights. We had to conduct background checks, have social workers visit homes, and post notices in newspapers. Emily officially became my daughter on September 15, 2022 after a 4-month process. After that, life settled into a comfortable pattern. In order to be more accessible, I made the decision to work from home permanently. 3 days a week, Emily began attending a local preschool, which she adored. Her professors praised her for being well-adjusted and gregarious, and she made friends easily. Every month my parents travel from Ohio to visit us. They showered Emily with gifts and attention, embracing their role as grandparents. Every time Penelope's parents call to see how Emily is doing, I send them pictures and updates. They never put any pressure on me regarding Penelope since they understand that I am now Emily's father. As a single father, dating has been fascinating. I usually scare women away right away or pique their curiosity because I'm always honest about having a daughter. Emily is my top priority, and I won't compromise on that. As a result, my 2 romances, each lasting a few months, terminated. Up until last week, everything was good. A knock on the door interrupted my work in my home office. Emily was enrolled in preschool. Penelope was standing there when I opened the door, and she didn't look at all like I remembered her. She appeared healthy, had well-groomed hair, and wore pricey clothing. She said that she had received assistance and was now prepared to become a mother. She had been attending therapy and was doing well as a project manager. Her goal was to regain custody and begin dating Emily. Since she had revoked her rights and I had legally adopted Emily, I informed her that was not feasible. She broke down in tears, admitting that she had erred and that her despair had prevented her from thinking clearly at the time. She became irate and threatened to get a lawyer when I refused to back down. She promised to provide evidence that she was forced to renounce her rights. I instructed her to get out and that my lawyer would have to handle any correspondence. I'm worried now. Emily is content, safe, and thriving in our life together. She has no memory of Penelope. I had to share this somewhere, but I've already phoned my lawyer to be ready for whatever Penelope might try. I will not allow anyone to take my kid away. Update 1. Since I last posted, a lot has transpired. Penelope sued, saying she had terminated her rights when untreated postpartum depression was plaguing her. A 15-page affidavit from her attorney described how I allegedly exploited her mental state to remove Emily from her. The text exchanges from 2021 to 2022 that were contained in the dossier showed Penelope requesting my assistance with Emily. Even back then, her lawyer misrepresented these messages to suggest that I was attempting to become Emily's mom. They also claimed that I had been preparing to obtain custody all along because I had baby goods at my apartment. After Penelope reached out to our former college pals, they became interested. I stole Penelope's baby, according to some of their Facebook posts. Our study group member Tom called me and told me that I should realize that Penelope was ill when she gave up Emily. After I'd declined to talk about letting Penelope see Emily, Lisa, another college acquaintance, blocked me on all social media. However, not everyone took Penelope's side. In a lengthy Facebook post, my friend Mark, who had frequently assisted me with Emily, described how Penelope had utterly abandoned Emily and disregarded all of my attempts to get in touch with her. He provided screenshots of our attempts to contact her that went unanswered. Emily's preschool has been in a tense situation. The director called me last Tuesday to let me know that Penelope had been keeping an eye on Emily while they were playing outside. She claimed to be Emily's mother and the right to see her from the personnel. She gave them old pictures of herself with baby Emily when they asked for identification. She refused to leave when the school security guard urged her to. She initially insisted that all she wanted was to see her daughter. Before she departed, they had to threaten to contact the police. I had to leave work early to pick up Emily after the director phoned me right away. The following day, I was at the school for 3 hours, updating all of Emily's documents. I provided them with copies of the court orders proving my sole custody and the adoption documents. I made it plain that no one else could pick Emily up, but I did add my parents to the pickup list. They changed their security procedures and now verify everyone's identity, even their known parents. Penelope began delivering parcels to our home. The first one, a big box filled with new toys, clothing, and a plush pink elephant, arrived last Wednesday. She sent a lengthy letter outlining her reasons for leaving and her deep regret. She put notes on the back of each picture and included pictures of herself with Emily when she was a newborn. Over the course of the following week, 3 additional shipments came. One had children's books that contained private notes. A handcrafted photo album of Emily's first few months was in another. The final one has a tablet with videos of Penelope reading bedtime tales already loaded on it. Emily hasn't seen any of it, but I'm keeping it all as proof. Last Friday, Mrs. Chen, my next-door neighbor, called to report that someone had been parked outside our house for a number of hours. I noticed Penelope's white Honda Civic when I looked. She left before the cops arrived, even though I had contacted them. Although they filed a report, the police stated that they were powerless to take any action until she threatened us or made direct contact. I discovered a message in our mailbox 2 days ago. Penelope noted that in order to give Emily afternoons free, she had adjusted her work schedule. She provided a thorough plan outlining how she intended to begin with monitored visits before progressively moving on to overnight stays. "I will continue to fight until I get my daughter back," she said at the end of the note. Emily has begun to ask questions that I find difficult to respond to. At school, she noticed Penelope observing her and inquired about the identity of the woman. Emily continually brings up the fact that I used to know her, even after I told her. Emily inquired yesterday if the woman would take her away. She no longer wants to attend school and has grown needy. My parents offered to let us spend some time with them in Ohio. It would be safer for them to reside in a guarded community. I thought about it, but moving would require removing Emily from her friends and school. She already has enough stress and adjustments to handle. When they learned of what was going on, Penelope's parents gave me a call. The way Penelope behaved appalled them. After leaving Emily, Penelope also stopped communicating with them, according to her mother. They searched but were unable to locate her. 6 months ago, she contacted them to inform them not to get in touch with me any longer. That was the first time they heard from her. According to my attorney, we have a compelling case. The adoption was completed correctly, including all necessary waiting periods and notices. Throughout the process, Penelope had her own attorney and willingly signed all the documents. He cautioned though that Penelope's attorney might attempt to drag this out in the hopes that I would consent to shared custody in order to put an end to the legal dispute. The expenses are mounting quickly. My attorney thinks that if this gets to trial, the $5,000 in legal fees I've already paid could increase significantly. Even though I'm fortunate to have savings, it's still difficult. I don't want this situation to become any more public than it currently is, but several folks recommended creating a GoFundMe. I'm recording everything for the time being, including every shipment, every school appearance, and every unwelcome contact. I placed security cameras all around our home and recorded Penelope passing by. I also started recording a thorough vlog of Emily's symptoms, including her queries, behavioral changes, and nightmares. Observing Emily's fear and confusion is the most difficult aspect. Every time someone knocked, she used to dash to the door. She is now hiding in her room. She constantly asks me to swear that I won't abandon her the way her last mother did. I had no idea that she was aware that Penelope was her other mother. She must have heard something in school, I suppose. I want this to stop, yet I refuse to comply with Penelope's demands. Emily is my daughter, and she has known me for the majority of her life as her only father. If someone decides they want to have children right away, I won't allow them to ruin her life. Update 2. Penelope's unexpected interest in Emily can be explained by something significant I learned about her. I received a Facebook message from Rachel, a nurse who used to work with Penelope at her previous hospital employment. She informed me that Penelope is now married to a wealthy Boston businessman and had another child 6 months ago. I received screenshots of Penelope's picture-perfect life from Rachel's private social media sites. She publishes pictures of her new baby boy, writes about charitable activities, and resides in a big house in a wealthy suburb. She discusses how parenthood transformed her life and the pleasures of being a first-time mother in each post. As Penelope's supervisor, Rachel had access to Penelope's old work emails, which contained the most crucial information. Penelope talked about her mother-in-law's final illness and a family trust fund that would be given to all of her grandkids upon her passing in these emails from 8 months ago. My lawyer did additional research and discovered more information. Last year, Penelope wed Robert Anderson. In Massachusetts, his family operates a series of upscale auto dealerships. Robert and his whole family were informed by Penelope that she had never been married or had children. For more than a year, she has been sharing on social media about her first experiences with parenthood and her new daughter. We also learned that precisely 1 week after Robert's mother passed away, Penelope began her custody battle. Penelope's mother-in-law left a multi-million-dollar trust fund, designated only for her biological grandkids. Each grandchild receives an equal share at turning 25 in accordance with the conditions of the trust. Things began to make sense when the time frame was reviewed. 2 weeks before her mother-in-law's passing, Penelope started passing our house on her way home. Only a few days after the death, the custody lawsuit was filed. She wants Emily to inherit anything, but she isn't attempting to get Emily back because she wants to become a mother. Rachel sent us Penelope's text chats with her friend Kate, which contained the most unsettling evidence. Penelope noted that she had to bring Emily back before the specifics of the trust money were decided. She discussed how she could explain Emily's existence to Robert by claiming that she had previously been too embarrassed to do so. She even intended to claim that while she was starting her career, she had temporarily placed Emily in my care. My attorney presented all of this evidence to Penelope's attorney. Then, with both attorneys present, Penelope asked for a private meeting. She revealed everything during the meeting. She claimed that although she felt bad about parting with Emily, she hadn't considered doing so until she found out about the trust fund. She believed she could use the inheritance money to make one for her past transgressions and provide Emily with a better life. Finding out that Penelope had hired a private investigator to follow us 3 months prior, long before she arrived at our door, was what really infuriated me. The PI collected data about our daily schedule and took pictures of Emily at school. Penelope knew just when to visit our home and when to get Emily up from school because of this. Emily is feeling the effects of the situation. She now pulls her blanket into my room every night instead of sleeping in her own room. I discovered her attempting to fit her favorite toys into her school backpack last week. She told me that she wanted to be prepared in case she had to go like her old mom did when I questioned why. At school, she overheard children discussing how the woman observing them was someone's mother who had left. I concluded that Emily needed expert assistance to handle this circumstance. I discovered a child psychologist who focuses on custody and adoption matters. So far, we've had 2 sessions. According to the psychologist, Emily is exhibiting symptoms of anxiousness, but she believes that with steady support and stability, she will be all right. Through all of this, Penelope's parents have been unexpectedly supportive. All of Penelope's emails and communications throughout the years, including ones in which she expressly stated that she would never want to see Emily again, were forwarded to me. They also gave a statement explaining how, after leaving Emily, Penelope stopped communicating with them and refused their assistance. Next month is the scheduled court date. With all of the fresh information on Penelope's actual intentions, my lawyer is really optimistic about our case. In order to prevent Penelope from seeing Emily or me, he is submitting a motion for a permanent restraining order. My parents helped me pay for the more than $12,000 in legal bills I've incurred over the past month. They stated that rather than risk losing their granddaughter, they would choose to spend their retirement funds now. I don't know if I could have fought this war alone, therefore I'm thankful for their support. Update 3. Last Monday, the legal case came to a close. When all of the court records and evidence were provided to Robert anonymously, Penelope's scheme fell apart. He attended the last hearing and discovered the whole truth about Penelope's history and current behavior. The judge examined all of the evidence for 4 hours. The text messages revealing Penelope's scheme to claim the trust fund funds piqued her curiosity the most. In addition, Penelope's hired private investigator testified that she had paid him to follow us months before she even tried to get in touch with Emily. During his testimony, Robert described how Penelope had deceived him and his family for 2 years. He disclosed that, on the grounds that she wants to adopt underprivileged children in the future, Penelope had pushed him to amend the terms of his mother's trust fund to include adopted children. Penelope began her scheme to reclaim custody of Emily after his mother refused. The judge's decision was unambiguous. She gave me a permanent restraining order and dismissed Penelope's custody petition. Penelope cannot approach Emily, me, our house, or Emily's school within 1,000 feet. Additionally, she is prohibited from mailing messages or packages, even via intermediaries. Any infraction will result in an arrest right away. Robert informed me following the hearing that he had already sought full custody of their son and filed for divorce. He discovered proof that Penelope had been financing her custody dispute with funds and resources from his business. She had paid the private investigator and attorneys more than $330,000 of their combined savings. When her manager discovered that Penelope had been using company time and computers to monitor us and plot her custody battle, she lost her job at the investment firm where she was employed. Her parents decided to take her in only after she began intense therapy, so she returned to Florida to live with them. About 30 minutes away from our previous home, we moved to a new one. Although it's in a different school district, my office is really closer to it. Last month, Emily began attending her new school. The principal is fully aware of our predicament and the school has outstanding security precautions. In her class, Emily has already met 3 new pals. I was able to explain everything to Emily in an age-appropriate manner with the assistance of the child psychologist. She picked me to be her father when we informed her that Penelope, her original mother, was unable to care for her. I was finally able to reassure Emily that no one would ever take her away when she questioned whether Penelope would take her away. Although Emily still occasionally sleeps in my room, the nightmares have largely ended. Her new teacher reports that she is adjusting well and that she is once again being her happy self at school. To make her feel more at ease in the new home, she sketched a portrait of our family last week, which only included her, me and our acquired pooch Max. Emily continues to get birthday and Christmas gifts from Penelope's parents. They just ever email me to see how she's doing and respect our boundaries. They have always been supportive of my adoption of Emily, so I send them pictures and updates every few months. I had to pay almost $40,000 in legal expenses for the entire thing, but it was well worth it to keep Emily safe. Last month, I received a promotion from my company, which aids in the financial recuperation. More significantly, we may now enjoy our lives without worrying about what others are doing. We are grateful to everyone who helped us get through this. No one can ever again question that Emily is my daughter in any meaningful manner. We're together, content and secure. That is all that is important. Mom calls me selfish over a phone gift incident from my teenage years. Am I the asshole or is she? Original post, 28F, was visiting my mom this weekend and I turned a video on while we crafted Smosh's new Reddit video. One of the first videos they cover is on the story of a mother losing her daughter's Louis Vuitton bag. We listened to it and I said it sounded similar to the phone incident when I was younger. My mom got really defensive, said that I was selfish as a teenager and I'm acting selfish now. We argued for a bit and she said, I wonder what Reddit would think of our story. So I decided to find out. For my 15th birthday, my grandpa sent me a new smartphone in the mail. I was incredibly excited about it and my mom was really upset. She said that it was inappropriate for me to have a more upgraded phone than she did. He sent me the newer version of the phone she had, and that there was no way she was going to let me have the phone. So, instead of transferring my SIM card to my new phone, she went and transferred hers to the new phone and mine to her phone. Her argument was that I still had a newer phone than my previous one, so I should be grateful. But given the new smartphone had been a gift, I was really upset and called my grandpa, her dad, to complain. He then called her and chewed her out for it, which made her yell at me for involving him. She said again there was no reason for me to have such an upgraded phone when I only used it to talk to my friends and she used her phone for work. Our argument went on for over a week before I just dropped it, but I was bitter for a long time. She continued to bring up how unbelievably selfish I had acted and that she was disappointed to have raised such a selfish daughter. Every once in a while, especially at family gatherings, this story will be brought up by someone and the argument starts all over. My brother, 17 at the time, and my dad stayed neutral on it, and my grandpa was pissed but lived in another country and couldn't do much but call my mom like he did. That's the story. My mom called me selfish again when I brought it up and said that my continued bitterness towards this event just goes to show how ungrateful and entitled that I am. No matter how many times I tell her that what she did was pretty messed up. So who is the AH? Edit. The intention was always to show the verdict of this post to my mom, since it was her idea to see what Reddit would think. I texted her and asked her if there was anything she'd like to add before I forwarded the post to her and just got this back. As I have said, it was not appropriate for a girl of your age to have a more capable smartphone if you weren't going to use it for anything other than texting your friends. Your grandpa did not ask me before sending the phone to you. I told you that you could not have the phone and you continued to ask for it, so I gave you my old one as a compromise, which was a newer and nicer phone than the one you had, and you still continued to ask for the newer one even after I said no. I maintain that your behavior was that of a selfish teenager, and I think any moms on Reddit will agree with me. Hopefully your post puts an end to this argument. I will add that she said this weekend, this was before Instagram. What would you have used the phone for? The new phone in question was a Samsung Galaxy 2. My mom had the Samsung Galaxy 1 and I had a Nokia slider phone before my grandpa sent me the new one. Edit 2. I am going to take screenshots of this post and send them to my mom after work. We'll try to update when I can. I don't expect she'll be happy, but I agree with her that hopefully we can stop bringing this up. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was voted NTA relevant comments. Commenter 1. Your mom told you to take this to Reddit. She needs to browse more. People here generally don't like bullies. OOP. She likes it when I put on the Reddit videos when we hang out, but has otherwise never explored Reddit. But even in that video, the Smosh people absolutely called that mother the AH, and my mom was like, well, our thing is completely different. Commenter 2. So gift stealing mother thinks you are selfish. Okay, did she do this with other gifts? Like take money from a gift for you? OOP. This is the only time in my life she has ever done something this extreme, which is why I think it gets brought up to this day, because it was such a wild situation for us and sticks out. OOP on getting the phone at the time. OOP. Valid concern, but the phone was genuinely a complete surprise from my grandpa. I had not asked for a new phone from my parents or my grandparents. Commenter 3. You are NTA, but your mom certainly is. It takes a hell of a lot of nerve to steal your child's gift because you want it and then claim that the child is selfish. Your mother's take is strictly self-serving, so she doesn't have to admit that she's wrong for stealing from her own child. Update. Posting an update here instead of AITA so I can just add screenshots. It is unfortunately not much of an update. I sent my mom about a dozen screenshots from the, then, 100 or so comments on the post right when I got off work. She didn't acknowledge or respond to them for a while, kept trying to talk about other things, and I had to keep pressing her to read the comments. I did most of the heavy lifting. She kept trying to change the subject and I had to keep redirecting. I tried to call her a few times after she said she read the comments and she would not answer, even though I think talking over text made this infinitely more frustrating. I don't feel like we came to any conclusion other than to never bring it up again. The final screenshot is from my brother, Jay. Thanks to everyone for giving me better language to talk about this situation and sharing similar experiences. I think it is just something my family has never been able to get over, as stupid as it is. My grandpa passed away 3 years ago, so unfortunately we cannot get his opinion. Transcripts of the text messages between OOP and her mom. Mom, yes, I read the comments you sent me, Mom. Obviously it isn't great to see random Reddit people talking about me on the internet. OP, I know, OOP, like I'm not even upset about the actual phone anymore. I feel like you keep mentioning the phone specifically. It's now more that after all these years you won't acknowledge even a little that what you did was hurtful to me as a teenager, and that people like Jay keep bringing it up because it was hurtful. I'm really sick of being called selfish for years because of this one thing, and you keep bringing it up seemingly just to tell people you think I'm selfish. Sorry to say, but I think most of the family agree with the Reddit comments. Mom, yes, okay. I do understand it's not about the phone, Viv, but when a mother says no, she expects that to be the final word. When you have kids, you will understand. From my point of view, everyone is questioning my parental decisions. Does not feel good being called an a-hole for saying no to my kid. Why do cousins need to have an opinion about what happened, let alone strangers? Maybe selfish was the wrong word to use for your behavior. That's fine. OOP. I'm not even sure what to say to that. OOP. You say you understand it's not actually about the phone, but like, do you understand that how you went about this was hurtful and that you've continued to be hurtful about it for years? OP. There are literally comments talking about gaslighting me about this. OOP. Did you show Dad, Mom? Yes. OP. And? Mom. Dad says we need to both get over it. I would like to, but for some reason it keeps being brought up. OP. I would also love to get over it, but you are one of the ones who keep bringing it up. OP. Again, it feels like you keep retelling the story just to tell a story about me being selfish and for no other reason. Mom. Jay brings it up too. OOP. Jay brings it up to emphasize your behavior sometimes. IDKOOP. I think the rest of the family want it to be a funny story and it isn't for us. OOP. I am happy to never bring it up again. OOP. I'm sick of talking about it. OP. But that means you can't bring it up again either. OOP. If you do, I'll show people the Reddit post. LOL. Mom, that's fine. Mom, going to bed now. Love you. OP, night. Please call me tomorrow. Conversation between OOP and her brother, JJ. FFS's phone gate finally over. OOP. LOL, maybe she said you have to stop talking about it. J. OK_hand. IDGF. Top comments. Commenter 1. I commented on your original post, but in my mind I had predicted that this was gonna be a reaction. This is such a frustrating response, but just accept it and roll with it. Some people will just never admit that they are wrong. That takes a lot of grace, and I'm sorry. A person who can't help but berate her own daughter is incapable of having such grace. So why keep that expectation? I mean, if the verdict would have been that you indeed were the asshole, she would have rubbed it in your face, but since she has been named the asshole, she wants to move on with life and forgive and forget. This was behavior that I think we all predicted. Maybe she should have thought twice before suggesting you put the story on Reddit, lol. Can't complain about strangers commenting on your bad parenting when it was your idea to open it up to discussion in the first place. You have just given a second example of her hypocrisy. Sorry if that's hurtful, she's your mother, but as an internet stranger, who saw your story that was approved by your mother to be posted and is hence proof that none of the details are fabricated or untrue, that story truly did not paint a respectable picture of your mother in my head. All I see is a selfish, manipulative parent who continues to be so in the screenshots you have shared. Anyway, what can you do? Take care and hopefully y'all will be okay. Commenter 2. Your mom is just being so frustrating and upsetting, WTF. She can avoid and deny to face the reality all she wants, but at least next time if she brings it up again, you can just show the post to shut her mouth. Even reading this already makes me so furious. I guess it's because I also have a mom who's super entitled. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I hope she'll STF you from now on. My daughter banned me from her wedding. So I secretly canceled the whole thing I paid for. It's absolutely true that no one can harm you more than your own children. My circumstances are identical. Ava, my 27-year-old daughter, forbade me from going to her wedding. For the past week, I've been drinking and pouting. Her wedding, which I financed, was scheduled for yesterday. Yes, it was a wedding present that I was paying for. Ava was a challenging youngster. When she told me about her wedding preparations, I was relieved that she was finally getting married to someone she loved, because I had a lot of nightmares while raising her. I helped since she and her fiancé were struggling financially and couldn't plan a good wedding. What do I receive in exchange? I was not allowed to go. The devastation is beyond words. I added my brother to the guest list by calling the wedding planner a few days ago. The guest list was full, he claimed. To see if we could arrange anything, I requested him to email me the whole guest list. He said that Ava had told him to keep the guest list private. I informed him that since I was her father and the one covering the wedding expenses, they had best follow my instructions. Despite his reluctance, he sent me the list when I threatened to call his boss. My heart sank when I saw that. I wasn't on it with my wife. Since neither my wife's nor my name was listed, I called the wedding coordinator once more and insisted there must have been an error. He clarified that he had been expressly instructed not to mention our names. Until he shared the email exchange between him and Ava, I couldn't believe it. They were told to prevent us from entering the venue, which made the situation worse. How devastating must that have been? Although I was aware of my daughter's animosity toward me, I never would have guessed that it would reach a level where she would not let me attend her wedding. She was at her bachelorette party that day, so when I frantically called her, her phone was on voicemail. She didn't call that day or the following, despite my message requesting her to do so. I arrived at her flat, where she and her fiancé were residing, on the third day, right before the wedding. She said that she was too busy getting ready for her wedding to meet with me. She was avoiding me since, by that point, the wedding planner had informed her that I was aware of the guest list. I went there to ask her a question, but her demeanor simply made me more irate. I informed her that I was aware that she had prevented me from going to the wedding. Well, good for you, was her response. Traveling to the location saved you time and effort. If I have time, I will forward the wedding photos. I went utterly insane. This was all there was. No explanation, no regret, no apology. Her cruelty made me cry. Tears filled my eyes as I questioned what I had done wrong to merit this. She said that I had always mistreated her, first by slapping a stepmother in her face and then by siding with other people. Even when she was at fault, she wanted me to stand up for her without reservation. When she harassed my sister's daughter, how could I stand up for her? When she was discovered using pills in class, I did defend her and prevented her from getting expelled. I helped her get into college. But she decided to remain unappreciative in spite of everything I accomplished. She accused me of generating negativity in her home when she noticed me crying. I reminded her that her wedding was being paid for by me. She became hostile and claimed that I owed her this and that I wasn't doing her any favors. I went crazy and told her that I owed her nothing. This wedding was a favor and I had done more than enough. She said she didn't have time for my emotional drama and asked me to go. When I got home, I sobbed uncontrollably in front of my wife, Mercy, who is Ava's stepmother. Mercy is a good-hearted and forgiving lady, yet she became enraged for the first time when she witnessed me cry. She urged me to do something about Ava. We must stop Ava from feeling entitled to harm us, she continued. Up until a year ago, when she eventually found a respectable job, Ava had been surviving off of my money. She didn't have any money saved for her wedding because of this. I'd had enough. I made the decision to discipline her. I called off all of the wedding plans. I didn't care that I hardly received any money back from the advance payments. I wanted to cancel the wedding planner as well as the wedding location, but I knew that would notify Ava, who could then make other arrangements. I intended to spoil her special day. I allowed her to keep her dress since she already had it. All of this made me feel bad, but after giving it some thought, I knew I had done more than enough for her. Why should I feel bad about interrupting her wedding if she didn't? When the wedding coordinator and the caterers and decorators showed up at the location on the wedding day, they were turned away. When the security showed them the cancellation email, it sparked a flurry of activity. When the wedding planner called to ask for the last payment, I informed them that I was no longer concerned and that they could speak with Ava about it. They informed me that when the venue guards denied Ava access, she got into a fight with them. Her fiancé saved her just in time after she nearly got arrested for trespassing. I had blocked her number when she attempted to contact me. I had denied her entry to the main gate when she arrived at my property. I desired tranquility, but I wasn't scared of her. Talking was pointless since, like she did when I visited her home, her comments would just make me feel worse. She needed to take responsibility for her conduct. She could no longer be repeatedly forgiven as a child. Ava just wanted her friends to attend her wedding, not family. I honored her decision. Fortunately, she had to deal with her friends about the wedding cancellation, so I didn't have to tell them. My parents were the only ones who weren't thrilled with what I accomplished. They said that regardless of how terrible our kids are to us, we should never treat them cruelly. I informed them that Ava was the cause of this. All her life, she had been cruel and egotistical. No matter how hard I try to defend what I did, the guilt still remains. I pretend to be brave, but I secretly regret calling off my own daughter's wedding. My heart has been relieved by writing this down, even if I have no idea why I'm here. Update 1. I appreciate all of your moral support. I didn't think my acts would be praised by others. I was afraid I would be considered a fool for taking such a harsh stance against my own daughter. A few of you inquired as to Ava's history of animosity toward us. I apologize for missing that previously. Here are the specifics. I had no idea how this format operated. My second wife is Mercy, a 45-year-old woman. My kid from my first marriage is named Ava. When Ava was 7 years old, I divorced her mother, my first wife. Ava's mother left me for him after finding someone else. I was granted custody of Ava because they were leaving for Europe and didn't want her. When Ava was 13, I remarried Mercy, and ever since, Mercy and I have had to deal with Ava's anger. Mercy is the object of her intense hatred. When she was a teenager, it made sense. It must have been difficult to watch someone take her mother's place. Mercy, a certified children's counselor and teacher, reassured me that Ava would be all right as an adult. She thought Ava would view me as more than simply her father. She would see me as a person in need of a companion. 5 years after the divorce, I got married in the hopes that Ava would value the fact that I had raised her by myself over those 5 years. Ava was disliked by both her mother and her new spouse. Regretfully, Ava showed absolutely no gratitude. Rather, Ava became increasingly hostile toward Mercy and me. In the hopes that Ava would find friendship there, I had to send her to live with my sister, who had a daughter of the same age, because things had gotten so horrible. After a few months of smooth sailing, my sister gave up less than a year later. Since it was their last year of school, my sister didn't want her daughter's grades to suffer as a result of the petty arguments that Ava and her daughter had, she informed me. I had to return Ava as a result. Ava lived with us until she graduated from high school, although she would spend her breaks with my parents. She eventually declared that she would complete her high school education while residing with them and refused to return home. I made arrangements for carpooling because my parents' residence was far from her school. As long as she was content and peaceful, that arrangement lasted. But her high school grades were terrible when they were released. At that point, I discovered that she had joined the wrong crowd, students who were doing drugs. She wanted to live with my parents because she had a nasty boyfriend. After they went to bed, she would slip out and tour the city until after midnight. Her senior year of high school had to be repeated. Another nightmare was getting her through college. She wouldn't have been accepted any place else due to her bad grades and depressing attitude, so thank God I had some contacts who helped her get a spot at a respectable college. She once again surrounded herself with the wrong crowd and used drugs while she was a college student. She had to go to rehab because things got so out of hand. She finally graduated at age 25, but she had a relapse the year after, so I had to send her back to treatment for a few months. She truly has been a pain in the butt, so calling her such wouldn't be impolite. She has continuously caused me distress, embarrassment, and misery. I'm so grateful for Mercy, my understanding wife. She could have talked me out of leaving Ava if she had been any other lady, but instead she was the one who continually urged me to wait. Mercy has given so much of herself for Ava and me, and I'm so grateful for it. The fact that I got married again, and Mercy even more so, seems to be Ava's biggest grievance. Mercy isn't Native American, you see. The Middle East was the birthplace of her family. Her parents, who were immigrants in the United States, were unable to support their 5 children, so she grew up in an NGO. They came to the United States with nothing after fleeing a war-torn area. I was drawn to Mercy for that reason. Despite having a difficult upbringing and little money, she persevered, obtained a master's degree, found a lucrative teaching position, and established a successful life for herself. Despite being a self-made woman, Ava refers to her as a gold digger. Yes, we have some generational riches because my family has had a successful export company for 2 generations. Since this is my second marriage and her first, Ava thinks Mercy married me for financial gain. Ava argues that if it weren't for financial gain, Mercy wouldn't have married a single father who was 12 years her senior. Mercy is 45 and I'm 57. I don't know who gave Ava these thoughts, but that's why she called Mercy a gold digger. A few of you also inquired as to whether Ava's mother had anything to do with this. In actuality, she hasn't gotten in touch with either Ava or myself since our divorce. All I know is that she was in Germany when I last heard from her. Regarding the present circumstance, Ava attempted to vent her rage by contacting me after I called off her wedding, but I prohibited her from doing so on any platform. When I called off the wedding, my parents were upset and offered to cover the costs if Ava wanted to reschedule. However, Ava betrayed them, saying they were supporting me. Using harsh language, she even threw them out of her house and told them not to come again. Although her teacher, who also happened to attend the same gym as me, was the one who discovered her high school substance use, she blames them for it. Following this, my parents had a change of heart and accepted my decision to call off the wedding. I can't give Ava the right to take advantage of and harm us whatever she pleases. I still haven't heard from her, so I have no idea what she's up to. 10 days after her alleged wedding day, my parents paid her a visit 2 days ago. They are still not married. They're probably arranging a new date or simply haven't followed through. Oh, and I blocked the credit card I was using to make the purchase. She still had access to it, but she hadn't used it much since landing her job. She will probably be upset by this, but I don't care anymore. I don't feel guilty now that I know how she treated my parents. They have always cherished and protected her, and they are in their late 70s. It was right to cut Ava off. Update 2. Hello everyone. Although it has been more than a year since I last updated this topic, I have remained in close contact with all of the people who PM'd me or left comments on the post. A few weeks later, I learned that Ava had married her fiancé in a secret ceremony attended only by their closest friends. I wished her luck in life and was pleased for her. I had no social media connection to her, so I had no idea what was going on in her life. My niece informed me that Ava had changed her Facebook status to reflect her and her husband's move to a nearby city. Before I received a call from an unknown number a week ago, everything in my life was going according to plan. It was Matt, Ava's husband. I was anxious, fearing that she might have suffered some sort of mishap. She wanted to meet me in person, which surprised me, but he reassured me that she was okay. He claimed he would explain when we met when I asked why. He proposed getting together for supper and said he was in town. In my heart, I hoped that this would be an opportunity to make amends with Ava. I believed that Matt was serving as a go-between and that she might be too embarrassed to approach me. I went to see him with great expectations, but to my disappointment, Matt arrived by himself. He said he had no idea where Ava was when I inquired about her. With a sinking heart, I inquired as to her whereabouts. Then he disclosed that they were no longer together. According to Matt, Ava had a history of abuse during their marriage and had a serious problem with anger management. Even over small disagreements, she would hurl objects and smash household objects. For as long as he could, he put up with it, but eventually it got to be too much, and they split up. Matt continued by saying that Ava had psychological problems and attributed any problems she encountered to other people. Because they had relocated to a new city for his work, she and he had many arguments. Ava was angry at him for removing her from her hometown, even though she had secured a comparable well-paying position there. That was only one of their numerous problems. Matt stated he wanted to apologize face to face. He acknowledged that he had seen Ava treat me, Mercy, and my parents cruelly, but he chose not to step in since Ava had used him against us all. He felt bad for ignoring the warning signs and causing himself suffering. I informed him that Ava was to blame and that he was not. I held myself partially responsible for not raising her well. I also expressed my regret to him for what he had endured with Ava. Then Matt asked me to do him a favor. He claimed that Ava was pleading with him to take her back since she had been upset by the breakup. But after experiencing her mistreatment, he had lost interest in her. He nevertheless sent her warm wishes and asked if I could help her during this trying period. Because of her rage, Ava had lost all of her true friends and Matt felt I could help her by taking her to therapy. I informed him that although I hoped I could, Ava would not allow me to be close to her. He got it, and we both said we wanted to help Ava if she would let us. I made the decision to go see Ava after that talk. Unfortunately, things didn't work out as planned. She attacked Mercy and me, but I had come by myself so Mercy wouldn't see Ava's anger. In an attempt to soothe her, I apologized. Right or wrong didn't matter to me at the time. I just wanted to assist her. I advised her to see a therapist first, but otherwise, she could say anything she wanted about me. Ava brought up the past without listening. She screamed that she wanted to kill Mercy because she detested her so much. She acknowledged that she was embarrassed by our marriage and embarrassed to introduce Mercy as her stepmother, which is why she had barred us from attending her wedding. She threw me out of the house when I tried to talk sense into her, accusing me of being the cause of all her issues. To be honest, I don't care anymore, and I'm not sure if I was correct or not. I don't know how to help her, but all I want is for her to recover. Update 3. I appreciate all of your moral support. When I created the last update, I was pretty upset, and this place has truly helped me relax. Mercy advised me to get in touch with Ava's school closest buddy. We knew each other well because her family lived next door. I messaged her on social media to explain the situation because she now resides in South Africa. Since she was the only person Ava had never battled with, I requested her to get in touch with Ava in the hopes that she could get through to her. Her buddy promised to assist, and happily she did. Ava committed to therapy, and I think it's going well because she came to see my parents a week ago and expressed regret for her actions. She acknowledged that she was no longer able to contain her hatred because it had become so strong. She still holds me responsible for everything though, and stated that she would never forgive me. I no longer harbor any animosity toward her. Even though I'm not involved, I simply hope she has a happy life. I appreciate your support, everyone. I sincerely hope that no father ever has to deal with their own child's intense hatred. I sincerely appreciate you staying until the very end. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you truly enjoy our videos. Enjoy your wonderful day. My sister can't have kids, and now my brother-in-law is stalking me because I refuse to be a surrogate to have a child with their DNA. My sister is identical to me, 30F. For the purposes of this narrative, we will refer to her as Stacy. Our father reared us after our mother tragically died during childbirth. I've been seeing Mike for the past 3 years, while Stacy has been married to Jeff for 8 years. My sister's desire to become a mother is something I've always known about her. She was constantly coming up with ideas for weddings, nursery themes, baby names, etc., even when we were kids. I was always more interested in reading and enjoying yourself. I'm currently working as a flight attendant and trying to have my writing published. My sister has never held a job. To be honest, we enrolled in college right away after high school. After graduating from college, she became a stay-at-home girlfriend to her fiancé, whom she eventually married. I've been aware for some time that my sister has been making fruitless attempts to conceive. Despite spending thousands of dollars on IVF and pretty much everything they could try because she wanted to experience pregnancy, she has had one miscarriage and has not been able to conceive again. They have begun to talk about other choices after 5 years of failure. My sister is keen about having a child that has both of their DNA, her words, not mine, and is not interested in adoption. She visited my place around 3 weeks ago and we were simply chatting and watching Modern Family as normal. She told me she needed to ask me an important question while she still had the courage. She asked if I could be her surrogate, which made me nervous. After a moment of inaction, I asked her what she meant. She said that she needed me to be her surrogate since I understood what a surrogacy meant. She was aware, I said, that I had no desire to have children. I'll be honest and say that I have never found the idea of having children appealing in any way, however this may be because of how we were born. I informed her that although I could not bear her child, I would have no problem giving her my eggs, no matter how many she needed. She was furious when she heard that. She was screaming that it's clear how envious and spiteful I am because this is a simple work. Her cheeks flushed. She had always mentioned having more than 4 children, but I didn't want to bring it up. Would I be expected to do this each and every time? I'm beginning to feel terrible, and I'm not sure. In the end, she told me that I could never be her sister if I couldn't do this one thing for her. She rushed out after smashing a photo of us that I had on my mantle. Since then, she has only sent me images of her vision boards and diaries from when we were children, claiming that I'm preventing her from starting a family pointlessly and that I should see the wider picture. Because it's such a sensitive topic, my boyfriend doesn't feel comfortable trying to influence me in either direction and won't give me advice, claiming that it belongs to my sister. Sincerely, this is the longest period of time I have ever gone without speaking to my sister, and I'm so close to caving in. Is it incorrect of me to refuse to act as my sister's surrogate? Edit, ***. As I read over all of the comments, I would like to express my gratitude. Knowing that I am not the villain makes me feel so much better, but I would be lying if I claimed that I am not inclined to just do it. I can't articulate how much this distance from my sister makes me feel, but I see too many questions that I want to respond to in the hopes of receiving other answers. Money ***. My mother's death was caused by a provider error rather than natural causes. My sister and I don't have to worry about money because we have substantial trust from the money my father used to fight the hospital. Not working for 9 months or having to pay for the egg retrieval procedure, etc., is not a problem at all because her spouse is also financially secure. The fact that the baby shares our DNA and that one of us is carrying it because we are identical is more a result of her stubbornness. How can I conceive if she can't? We were involved in an automobile accident that prevented her from becoming pregnant and caused her to miscarry. She and our father received the brunt of the collision because they were in the front seat. She has experienced severe difficulties with egg retrieval, and regrettably, her body is no longer capable of bearing a kid. I don't know exactly how that went wrong, but I do know that it isn't working and isn't an option. Getting her to talk about non-viable choices so I can better grasp them is difficult. I don't have a child, so doctors won't let me be a surrogate. I greatly appreciate your knowledge. We always watch football with our dads and significant others, so this Thursday we're having a family supper. If she chooses to go, this subject will undoubtedly come up. Update 1, 2 days later. I promised to give you an update tomorrow, but last night, while I was hanging out, my dad called and invited me over for supper so we could talk. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for all of the advice and comments. Not only were some of you rude to me, but also to my sister and boyfriend. I still value the assistance. When my dad called, I assumed he had spoken to Stacy, so I didn't even inquire what it was about. I know you guys won't be pleased based on the responses, but I asked my partner where he thought he would be if I went forward with it. He assured me that he loved me and would be there for me no matter what, but he would not stand by and watch while my sister treated me like garbage if I was acting in this way under duress. I genuinely fully understand his statement that he wouldn't be able to support me. My sister and brother-in-law were already at my dad's when we arrived for dinner. When we walked in, I spoke to both of them, but only my sister answered. My brother-in-law met my partner alone and gave me the most repulsive look. There was an uneasy stillness and tension that might have been sliced with a butcher knife when my dad seated us down at the table. "Somebody talk," he said. "This has to be fixed before tomorrow night's game." My dad is a huge football fan, haha. I began by informing her that I had done some research and that, in addition to my original worries, I now had a few more and needed to know precisely what she needed from me. I started by asking her what it would be like to be a surrogate. "Are you agreeing to it?" she said. She started crying when I informed her that I simply wanted more information. Considering that I have never successfully carried a kid to term, I asked her if she was aware that a doctor might reject me as a surrogate. She claimed to be aware of this and to have simply sent my brother-in-law and I to a center of excellence, so we could act like a couple. After my successful insemination, I would ask that provider to transfer me to her OB/GYN so that I could continue receiving care. My father stepped in and told me that it was a bad idea to try to become a mother by asking me to do something that a doctor wouldn't approve. He didn't want to take sides, but it was clear that he didn't agree with any of it. My brother-in-law interrupted him by saying, "Don't try to berate my wife with these stupid questions." After he asked her why she felt so uneasy about the thought of a surrogate. "Discuss with your self-centered daughter the reasons for her inability to assist her sister." That changed the atmosphere right away. When my partner called me a B***, he began to yell at me. My father told him that he was not allowed to treat his daughters disrespectfully in his house. Everything simply caught fire. My sister was sobbing and pleading with me to do her this favor. I was afraid and didn't want to die, so I told her that I would switch places with her if we could. That was probably the first time I had ever spoken that out. After that, we were unable to settle any further issues. My brother-in-law lost his temper and refused to apologize, so my dad asked him to leave. As he was leaving, my sister invited me to come chat to her alone on the porch and told him she would meet him in the car. She said she was simply on edge and it had been hectic, and she apologized for her husband calling me a b*tch when we went out. I told her that we needed to work things out and that she shouldn't apologize for him. "You don't get it, you don't understand," she said repeatedly as she urged me to think again. She told me that her in-laws had cruelly joked at one of their recent dinners that she was a murderer, referring to the kid she lost, when I pushed her for further information. She claimed that when she questioned her husband about why he didn't defend her during the joke, he responded that it was true. He made strange remarks about how he was eager to see their child's appearance and that she couldn't make up for it. She suggested that I carry the child, and he was completely on board with the idea since he claimed he would never be able to look into a child and see pieces of both of them. She thought it was her idea, but the way she stated it, it sounded like he sowed the seed. She stated she only wanted my assistance to get things back to normal because she hadn't seen him so enthusiastic since the baby. I tried to tell her that what she was attempting to accomplish was incorrect and that nothing would ever be normal again. She replied she would call me later, but he began honking the horn and hurried her to the car. I am not even willing to donate my eggs so that she might have a child with him, even though I feel like I might lose my sister. I looked into the egg donation procedure as you suggested and wow, it was quite different from what I had anticipated. Her divorcing him is what I want. I will never assist her in having children with that man. I honestly believe that before I ever let her implant his child in me or use my eggs to even conceive a child with him, I would serve as a surrogate for her to become a single mother. I was unaware of how much shame his family was forcing on her. Every time my phone rings, I literally jump at it because I know she will be calling soon and I will have to let her know. I can't and won't do this. Even though I'm afraid I'll lose my sister. I appreciate all of your help, but I probably won't update anymore. Update 2, 1 week later. Although I know I promised to stop updating, a lot has happened, and I can't even begin to describe the strange sense of comfort I get from writing my insanity on this page. Many of you advised me to use greater caution around my brother-in-law out of concern that he would turn violent. I'm kicking myself now for not paying attention. I believed this to be a minor setback and that I knew my family well enough. How incredibly gullible of me. The day after he called me a b*tch, my sister called me back the next morning, but I was in the shower and missed the call. There was no answer when I called back. Before we arrived at my father's place that evening for football, the day was typical. My sister had just in after kickoff. My dad was asked to step outside and speak with her spouse. Since the game was on and he had the option of waiting until the commercial break or coming in and apologizing like a man in front of everyone who saw him treat me disrespectfully, my dad said no. She inhaled and pointed out that he wasn't being entirely honest. My father became enraged when she attempted to make similarities to a past circumstance. He apologized for failing her as a father and assured her that he didn't train her to be weak and insignificant for a man. He also added that whatever he did led her to believe that this was the way to have a healthy relationship. Without saying another word, she simply rushed out as her eyes began to water. After the game, I had a smashed front passenger window and 2 flat tires when I went outside to my car. After putting 2 extra tires on the automobile and towing it into his garage with his truck, my dad instructed me to take his second car. "Don't worry," he replied. He would fix the car and I could come retrieve it whenever I had time. I said no when he asked if I wanted to spend the night. My sister didn't pick up when I called her. "I can't believe this is where we are," I texted her, adding a few more words to keep some of it hidden. "It should never be necessary to destroy your family in order to love a man. That's the problem," she said in response. "You refuse to assist me in rebuilding my family, which has already been ruined." After that, I tried phoning her again, but she didn't pick up. I saw a car following me on the way home. Upon gaining a clearer perspective, I recognized the vehicle as belonging to my sister's mother-in-law. She has an extremely unique car decal that I have never seen anywhere else, which is the only reason I knew this. In a panic, I called my boyfriend and asked him to come back to my house. The automobile came up behind me as I pulled into my driveway. Fortunately, by the time my brother-in-law exited his mother's car and attempted to approach me, my partner was turning down the street. My boyfriend was shouting at him as he ran out of his car. Jeff began shouting right away. "I simply wanted to apologize. I only wanted to say I'm sorry." After a brief altercation with my boyfriend, Jeff returned to his mother's vehicle and drove away. Although it didn't seem deliberate, he did collide with my boyfriend's car throughout the process, and it is still operable. I must admit that after this, I no longer felt quite at home. I haven't actually been home since I packed my bags and left for my boyfriend's house. Even though I know I will eventually have to return, I'm not entirely sure I want to. Even if my dad installed a camera and floodlights to the driveway and back door. Yes, I did contact my sister, but neither that evening nor the next day did she reply in any way. Then I began to see a black automobile following me one day and a red one the next. I know you could say I was frightened and only dreaming, but I would see them begin to follow until I drove in the direction of the police station, as instructed by my dad, and then they would stop as soon as they saw the station. I joined a few pals for breakfast on Sunday to celebrate a friend's impending nuptials and talk about the specifics of the bridal shower. The waiter approached me and informed me that there was an emergency and that my spouse was up front. I walked up to see my brother-in-law, assuming it was my boyfriend, and she was just misinformed. In an attempt to avoid creating a commotion, I walked up to him, spoke softly, and told him to go or I would contact my father. He informed me that he just wanted to apologize because everything had just gotten out of hand. It was odd since we were sort of in the doorway and people were rushing in and saying, "Excuse me." I therefore proposed that we move outside to clear the area. He stated he didn't mean to call me a bitch and apologized when we got outside. I interrupted him when he said that I didn't understand how difficult it was for him, stating that I didn't care since his actions were getting too aggressive and disorderly, not only toward my sister, but toward everyone else as well. He begged me to think again, but he acknowledged that he could understand how I could feel that way. I immediately retreated and urged him to go as he reached for my stomach. I mentioned that my dad's stalking was a problem and that we could arrange a time to speak, or I would call the police. He grabbed a handful of my hair as I was making my way back inside the restaurant and said, "Don't you effing walk away from me." After that, I honestly don't recall much because everything happened so fast and several onlookers became involved. Although he ultimately ran away before the police could reach him, a report was made. Similar to what happened at the restaurant, he attempted to approach my airport terminal 2 days earlier, claiming to be my spouse and informing them of an emergency. He refused to leave and was taken into custody. Naturally, he received bail and has since started sending me the most disgusting messages. After the performance he gave at my employment, my sister did leave him. She has been pleading with me to drop the charges, using her current residence with our father as justification. Despite my actual scalp bleeding from the force with which he pulled my hair and the minor scratches on my arms and neck from when he continued to act aggressively when strangers attempted to assist, she has been certain that he did not hit me at the restaurant. In some of the texts he sends me, he describes the horrible things he will do to me, such as how he will get me pregnant and keep me with him forever. How he knows I am the woman who will give birth to his kid, and how if I don't make things easy for him, we will both pass away before he quits up. Just some extremely alarming things. All of these are coming from different texting applications because I banned his number. When I told the police, they indicated that nothing could be done until he took action because there was no way to verify that it was him. I literally live in constant fear. In addition to the usual safety measures I take, I'm taking even more care now that my boyfriend takes me to work. I have trouble falling asleep. My sister has stopped communicating with me, and I send her a screenshot each time her husband messages me. My dad has urged me to stop because it's hurting her, but I told him that she needed to understand the abuse her husband is causing and that I couldn't believe she stood up for him during some of this. I feel like I've lost. My sister and I may not even be able to recover from this. I feel awful because I feel like I've essentially taken over my boyfriend's life. He hasn't mentioned it, but because I'm afraid, he occasionally has to cut short his usual gym sessions if he needs to pick me up or leave me off when I have to go somewhere else or work. He can do more of his routine when he's gone for a day because of flights, but we're essentially compelled to live together now. I like it, but I don't know if he does. I can't breathe, and I feel like my life is slowly spiraling into lunacy because of the dispute we had the other day about the AC temperature. Update 3. 1 week later. Hello. My brother-in-law is currently stalking me, but I'm not sure where to begin. He wants me to have his child, but I don't want to delve into the specifics. Regretfully, the narrative only becomes more disorganized. The police said that the texts coming in from unknown numbers couldn't be linked to him. So I unblocked him after others advised me to do so. He has messaged me a few times from his real number, stating that we need to speak and reach a consensus. Naturally, I haven't participated. The disgusting texts from odd numbers have persisted. I always feel like someone is following me, but I can't be sure. I feel like a blue car is following me when I go to Dunkin' for coffee. I've really taken a leave of absence from work because I've reached this point. I've moved in with my now fiancé and entirely abandoned my apartment. He was there when I went grocery shopping a few days ago. His hand rubbed my back as he came up behind me. I yelled and leaped to get his attention, and he feigned confusion by raising his hands and saying, "I'm sorry, I'll leave you alone." "I'm sorry." The witnesses essentially accepted his apologies on my behalf and sent him on his way because he appeared so sincere. I was literally unable to breathe, speak, or even form words other than "someone help." I was so powerless. My apartment was broken into and left in ruins the next day. I received a strange number the next day with the warning, "It'll only get worse." I'm afraid. Right now my sister lives with my dad, and she is certain that it isn't her husband. He's been in contact with her regarding obtaining a fresh perspective and leaving the state because he feels like he's been unhinged and needs to re-enter, she said, adding that things went too far. I am at a loss as to how to persuade her that he is lying. It appears that the cops won't assist him because he hasn't done anything wrong. For anything to happen, I feel like I need to die or have him seriously damage me. Help me, please. Since I'm in the United States right now, I would appreciate it if you could let me know about any laws that would be of assistance, or encourage the police to be more helpful. I'm having trouble falling asleep, and I'm getting to the point where I don't want to leave my apartment. Help me, please. Update 4. Even though this has been completely crazy, Reddit will always hold a special place in my heart. I will make this as brief as possible. My partner questioned me why I was looking at flats once he learned that I was going to rent one for a short time like a fool. He proposed to me right away after I informed him that I thought he needed his space back. I'm actually engaged right now. Taking over his flat has made me feel much better, haha. I explained that my brother-in-law was getting out of hand in a post in the advice subreddit. He came up to me at a grocery store, and I didn't do well defending myself there. It wasn't my best moment. He shattered a few items in my kitchen, damaged my bedroom, and broke into my house. He is aware of my passion for my espresso machine and mugs. Yes, cameras were later placed, but I wasn't present. During my leave of absence, I essentially kept hidden away in my fiancé's apartment. Before I received a surprise call, my sister had been ignoring my texts and not interacting with me. She was crying on the phone when I answered. I thought something had happened to our dad, so I asked her what was wrong. She clarified that she knew her husband was following me because she had been monitoring him. She claimed that she was telling me because she had gone to the police, who had informed her that they would send someone to speak with me. We spent 5 hours on the phone. My light bulb went off after the hair-pulling incident and I went into investigative mode, she explained. She claimed that she chose to call the police because she was worried about my safety at that point. She expressed regret for putting me under so much stress. Although she would want to put all the blame on her spouse, she admitted that a small part of her was astonished when I said no. She clarified that she doesn't care about the DNA issue. My brother-in-law was the one who demanded it. All she wanted was for her family to be whole. She will be temporarily living with me at my house until the divorce is finalized and everything has calmed down. They have a prenuptial agreement, so it shouldn't be too difficult, but I'm sure he won't make the divorce simple. A side note. When my father slipped and revealed that my sister's husband had broken into my house, I did learn of it. It seems like she kept the knowledge because she needed to make a decision. He claimed that after she told him, he told her she had no other option and forced her to leave right away. It seems that she didn't fight very hard. I'm not really sure how I feel about this, but my dad stated that he believes she only needed someone to say it to her in order for her to understand. I'm glad she ultimately made the right choice. The following day, the cops arrived at my fiancé's flat. After I gave my statement, they told me that they wanted to have an agent drive an unmarked car around me for a day and that he would be arrested if he followed me. They said that it would happen right away and that I shouldn't panic if I thought I was being followed, but they didn't tell me which automobile was after me. In essence, he was apprehended just 2 hours after I left my fiancé's residence. He was stopped and taken into custody as we drew into the third place where we went on a date. That night at the restaurant, I had more margaritas than I should have. I was informed by the detective that I will receive a call from the DA's office, which I believe will happen tomorrow. Given the way things have gone, I honestly don't think they'll hold him to much, but I do hope that since they have his phone, they will be able to physically verify that he was texting me, which will increase the severity of his sentence. This week, I have my first flight back to work, and I can't wait to resume my regularly planned routine. I had the opportunity to watch the fantastic football games today with my sister, dad, and fiancé. I sincerely hope I never need to edit this again. Many thanks to all of you. I refuse to force my son to forgive my brother after he excluded him from his wedding. Now my family's divided over it. Allow her to organize everything, including the location, cuisine, music, etc. In July of last year, Karen made the decision to organize a destination wedding at a posh resort. The invitation arrived, and it was sent to my son and myself. I tried to book our hotel room as soon as the page launched, and I even had a +1 if I wanted to. To be clear, I couldn't risk not getting a room, therefore I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working. The email confirmation stated room for 2 adults, but I didn't give it much thought because I thought the hotel representative's language barrier might have caused the error. At about the same time, I also purchased our airline tickets. Less than a month before the wedding, in January, my sister-in-law contacted me in tears and told me that Karen had messed up. My kid was 13 at the time, and it seems that the resort was adults only, meaning that no one under the age of 16 was permitted. When I requested whether Leo and I might stay at another hotel, they informed me that my son would not even be permitted to attend the ceremony or the reception because the entire resort was child-free. Disappointed, I promised my sister-in-law that I would discuss it with my son. She insisted that she and Jack wanted to inform him in person, even though I knew how thrilled he was about his uncle's wedding. To be honest, when my son was informed that he couldn't go, he broke down in tears. He begged them to reschedule the wedding, even providing his savings as collateral. After 30 minutes of this, my sister-in-law became irate and informed him that the day wasn't about him and that he was being self-centered. After a while, Leo apologized and retired to his room. My son ceased communicating with my brother after the wedding. Unless it was specifically concerning me, such as when Jack had to relay a message because he couldn't get through to me, Leo would ignore any messages that Jack sent him. Leo would only answer simple queries like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help grandma with the plates" at family get-togethers, but he would turn his back on my brother if Jack or Mary attempted to strike up a discussion or inquire about his schooling. To make up for the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take my son on a special spring break vacation a month after the wedding, but he turned them down and subsequently informed me he didn't want to go. He adhered to his decision, which was terrible because I knew he truly wanted to go there and I wasn't yet able to finance it. The same thing occurred on Leo's birthday. As I do every year, he inquired whether I was going to throw him a party. When I replied that I was, he asked me not to bring his aunt and uncle. He only stated that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. I attempted to persuade him to invite them because they are family and were truly sorry. When I told my brother he wasn't invited, he started crying. This past weekend, when we were at my mom's house and the topic of Leo's plans for college came up, things became heated. My mother urged Leo to begin making plans after asking him if he still intended to attend the same institution as Jack. Leo responded that he had changed his mind and was no longer interested. In response, my son said he had decided to study something else because he was no longer interested. "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," my mother then asked. "Why would I want to be like him?" was my son's recent response. I stepped in at this moment and reminded Leo that his rudeness was unnecessary, but the harm had already been done. After hearing what he had to say, my brother and sister-in-law quickly departed. My brother texted me last night, accusing me of being bad for letting my kid harbor this resentment. He even said that I wasn't attempting to mend their relationship because I was jealous of it. I retorted that he was solely responsible for allowing his mother-in-law to arrange a wedding where my child was not welcome and that these were the results of his own behavior. He ended the call. My mother and a few other family members believe that in order for us to move on, I should make my kid forgive my brother, claiming that it was only a little error and that there was no malice. But I don't concur. My kid was obviously harmed, and he should only be given the opportunity to move past his hurt and forgive them when he is ready. Edit. I apologize for not getting back to you yesterday. After viewing the Civ 7 revelation, I became preoccupied with a Civ 6 game. Now that I've read through every remark, I wanted to respond to a topic that keeps coming up. I wasn't at the wedding. It didn't feel right to leave after what had happened, and I didn't want to leave my son alone while the majority of the family was away. Leo's tone, more than the words he used, was impolite in his response to Grandma's query. He provoked his uncle with a tone that I've seen him employ previously and am familiar with. He was attempting to start a quarrel, not only answering an improper query. I have respected his boundaries and understand his pain and anger, but that doesn't mean I have to put up with his acting aggressively whenever he feels like it. As for the actual conversation, let me summarize what Mary, my son and I said. Mary, we made a mistake and you won't be able to go to the wedding. Leo, but why? I want to go and you invited me. Mary said, the venue only accepts adults, you can't enter. Leo said, can't you make an exception? Me. Leo, they can't. Do you recall being informed that they couldn't have kids in the bar when you applied for a part-time job there? That's how it is. Leo says, can't you get married somewhere else? Mary. We are unable to. We have already spent a lot of money on that location. Leo replied, I can give you my savings. Mary. It's insufficient. Additionally, none of the guests want to forfeit the money they have already spent. Leo, my father is wealthy. I can leave if he gives you money. It's unfair. I want to attend the wedding. Jack. Leo, I apologize, but we can make it right. After the wedding, how about we take you to Greece? Leo. I don't want to go to Greece, he said, growing increasingly agitated. I'd like to attend the wedding. Why do you not want me to be there? Me. It was an error, Leo. We were unaware that there was a minimum age limit, but they wanted you there. Leo. That's unfair, then why did you invite me? On my uncle's special day, I would like to be with him. This is not our fault, Mary exclaimed, raising her voice. You have to let it go, it simply occurred. I'm sorry you can't make it, but you must quit being so self-centered. It's not your special day, it's mine. It was then that Leo lost it. I tried to comfort him and gave Mary a shut-up look without saying anything, as I indicated in a previous comment. Jack did say something to her, but I was unable to understand what he was saying. Leo apologized and begged to retire to his room after he had cooled down. Jack and Mary made an effort to apologize, but Leo ignored them. My kid requested me to go, but I followed him to his room to check on him. I returned to the living area. What the devil is wrong with you? I asked. It is not your place to shout at my son. Mary, I apologize, I simply have too much stress. For the past 2 months, my mom and I have been at odds over this. Me? I don't give a damn. You made it worse when I told you over the phone that he would be disappointed. Leave. Jack. Jacob, please. It wasn't her intention. I'll compensate Leo. Me? I don't care, I said. Leave. After they departed, I went to see how Leo was doing. I don't remember everything that was said because I don't have a photographic memory, but that's the main idea of what transpired that day. Update 1. In a nutshell, we will no longer be going to family gatherings. My brother promised to respect my son's boundaries after we spoke. He also described the actual events. Leo is currently doing a lot better. Longer update. I told my mother that until things settled down and, more crucially, until Leo felt at ease again, we would both no longer attend family events. She was obviously unhappy, but it appeared that she had now realized how much Leo had been harmed by her persistence. Surprisingly, she explained that she was so adamant that Leo forgive Jack because he had fallen into depression. Leo might become estranged from the family if I made him forgive his uncle, I informed her. When I informed my sister that we would no longer be going to events, she was equally upset, but she understood. In order for the children to continue spending time together, she recommended that we establish our own weekly ritual. Over the last few weeks, Leo has spent time at my sister's house 1 week and her kids have visited me the following. Leo appears okay with this arrangement, and it's beneficial that grown-ups aren't pressuring him to talk to his uncle. I texted my brother the weekend after my post to arrange a private meeting so we could chat. Mary wasn't present. Jack quickly expressed his regret for his actions and the things he had said to me. He verified my suspicions. He had been under stress due to frequent arguments with Mary and had even contemplated divorce due to the severity of the situation. I assured him I wasn't worried about it, even though it might sound harsh. I hoped he would be honest with me about what had transpired. Jack insists that it wasn't until late November that he learned the venue was child-free. But Mary had known for a long time, perhaps since the beginning, as many of you suspected. It seems that this all began when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach a few years back. My son unintentionally called Jack Dad when they were playing, but he swiftly corrected himself. Jack said it was simply a minor lapse, similar to when a toddler calls a teacher mom. Jack dismissed Leo's embarrassment with a laugh. The catch? During that vacation, Jack's father-in-law, Phil, and mother-in-law Karen, were present and heard Leo. Knowing that Mary couldn't have children, Karen lost it when they got back from the trip and said she was triggered by witnessing a random child call Jack Dad. Karen became poisonous and hostile toward Mary, making demands such as preventing Leo from being present during her visits, despite Mary's attempts to clarify that it was simply an innocent error. Karen coerced Mary into allowing her to organize the ideal wedding for her only daughter, despite Jack and Mary's initial desire to elope and forego a lavish ceremony. After years of manipulating emotions, Mary ultimately gave in an attempt to maintain harmony. Karen then took over the wedding plans and deliberately picked a location that would not accommodate children. When Mary tried to protest after learning that the venue was reserved, Karen played the victim and dismissed her worries. Even if they slept at a different hotel, Mary said she tried to work out a deal with the resort that would let kids attend just the ceremony and reception. The management, however, refused to change the policy. Mary became more and more nervous as the date drew near, and in November she told Jack the truth. My brother claims that Mary finally snapped at Leo, in part because to her own mother's persistent manipulation and bullying, and in part because she felt guilty for allowing things to get to this point. Jack informed me that instead of excluding Leo and my sister's kids from the wedding, he would have called it off if he had known sooner. However, it was impossible to cancel by November since too many attendees had already reserved hotel rooms and flights. None of this, I informed Jack, justified the way he and Mary had handled Leo, particularly Mary. Even though she was older than 40, she nonetheless picked a battle with a toddler. Because Leo intended to utilize the £2,000 he had saved to attend Jack's wedding, she had screamed at him and called him selfish. I reminded Jack that he had disappointed Leo, who admired him and considered him a hero. Leo had learned that Jack didn't value him as much as he had assumed. I informed Jack that I would go low contact myself and that I would back Leo's decision to stop communicating with him. Jack requested an opportunity to apologize to Leo, but I informed him that he had already done so and that his only option was to wait for Leo to accept it. Although Jack appeared offended, he promised to honor our requests and give us some space and time. Regarding my son, I expressed my regret to him for not advocating for him earlier and for making him go to weekly family events. I informed him that going future, he was free to choose how he wanted to manage that aspect of the family. I informed Leo that I would be there for him no matter what and that I wouldn't be disappointed if he decided to quit going entirely, even if he looked hesitant to do so. I was pleased when Leo proposed that we spend more time together, alone, doing things he used to do with my brother, rather than attending weekly family events. We attended a vintage car exhibition last week, and we're going to see Wicked the following week. It sounds like fun, but I'm not a theatrical person. Leo shouldn't hold back simply because he had a falling out with someone he cared about, I told him, adding that I was concerned he had stopped doing things he enjoyed. In essence, I informed him that he could still enjoy those activities, alone or with someone else. He acknowledged that, in spite of Jack, he had ceased doing them even though he really wanted to. I then made the decision to buy him some games that he had been looking forward to but had refunded following the altercation with my brother as an early Christmas present. He even persuaded me to join him on his PS5 for a game of Final Fantasy Online while he plays on his PC. He seems to like watching me fail, even though I'll admit that I have no idea what I'm doing because the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D. We would appreciate any advice you may have. For my birthday, we ultimately agreed to travel to his ideal location. I was a little disappointed that I won't be celebrating my brother's birthday for the first time in almost 50 years, but all that matters is that I have my son. It's a relief that Leo is content and less anxious about family issues. It's also encouraging that the family appears to be finally recognizing our limits. All I can hope for is that my brother can improve his marriage. Even though I'm angry at what they did, I do want him to be content.